I would move we accept the agenda as written.
As written. Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is approved as written. There were minutes from August 23rd of this year that were included in the packet. Are there any changes to those minutes that were not already communicated to staff? Okay, then do we have a
Move
motion?
to approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The minutes are also approved. We have one item on our consent agenda tonight. The consent agenda includes items that are administrative actions where no additional discussion is needed. When approved, the recommendations in the staff reports become the action of the commission. We can have a motion to discuss any of the items if we need to. And at that point, we could take something off the consent agenda, put it on the regular agenda. But if there are no objections or comments, then we just move to a motion regarding the consent agenda. Are there any motions for the consent?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
And I'll
Okay.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda item passes. We have no administrative session items tonight, so we will move to the legislative session items, of which there are 3 items, each one requiring a public hearing. So we will first have a presentation from the city staff on each item, and then we will move to public comment once we've had a motion and we've opened the public comment period, and I will provide instructions on how that goes forward once we get to that point.
Are we planning on taking the applicant presentation prior to the hearing?
Yeah, as well.
Okay, this item 2 on the agenda is Carla Moore seeking an amendment to our official zone map from the R2, which is the single and 2 family residential zone, to the R15 single family residential zone on property located at 85 South and 800 East, on that southeast corner there highlighted in blue. The lot is just over 13,000 square feet. As it sits today, it could have a duplex or twin home on it and meet all the current zoning standards. The applicant would rather not have a 2-family dwelling and would prefer to have 2 single-family lots, which, if it was zoned R15, it could easily fit another single-family lot on that east back portion, which is what she desires to do. Like I said, the R2 zone allows for 2 units, like a duplex or a twin home on a 10,000 square foot lot. The general plan, it fits with the general plan because it's a medium density category. As you can see, here's that little blue lot up here. Everything that's in the R15 historic district, Brookside, all that is in the medium density residential category for the general plan, and is in with keeping with the R15 zoning requirements. The minimum lot standards for a single-family parcel versus the R15 would be 7,000 square feet versus the 5,000 square feet in the R15. Let's see. The existing lot, again, has enough lot area to accommodate a 2-unit dwelling under the current R2. And staff recommends approval, finding that the proposed zone map amendment is consistent with the general plan and in keeping in character with the surrounding neighborhood and area. And I'd entertain any questions on that.
No questions here.
None?
Anybody else have any?
I'm not sure if the applicant's here or not.
And so the lot right now is zoned exactly the same as everything right next to it?
The general plan designation for the lot, the whole area is zoned R2.
Okay.
The general plan is the medium density, which warrants the R2 and the R15 zones.
Okay. Okay, well, if there's no questions, then we'll invite the applicant to come address the commission if the applicant is here. It does not appear that we have the applicant. So, having no discussion with the applicant, we would move to discussion amongst the commission. After we will do the public comment, so we have a motion to open the public comment.
Move to open the public comment.
And second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so at this portion of the meeting, we are in a public hearing for this item, but only this item. There are other items that are also going to have public hearings, but at this time, we would like to restrict comment to just this item. If you would like to make a comment, please come to the microphone one at a time and state your name and address for the record. And we will, if needed, we'll limit time so everybody has a chance and equal amount opportunity. Is there any comment on this item? Okay,
Doesn't appear there's any.
It doesn't.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now closed for this item. Is there any discussion amongst commissioners on how you want to move forward with this one? Any concerns?
No, it appears to me, I mean, when you have something that, usually where you're actually looking for larger lots and those kinds of things, doesn't happen as often, so
Yeah.
it's quite
Mhm.
nice. Like this.
Okay,
Are we ready?
looks like it.
Madam Chair, I move to recommend approval to amend the official zone map from R2 single two-family residential zone to the R15 single-family residential zone on the property located at 85 South, 800 East.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And item number 2 on our agenda passes. Okay, the next item on our agenda for the public hearings, it would be Springville Community Development requests amendments to the moderate income housing element of the general plan for compliance with the 2022 House Bill 462.
I always get the difficult ones, and she gets the easy ones. That's what you do to the new girl? Is that?
We have to break you in.
Well, okay. All right. So, yes, it is that wonderful time of the year where we get to update the moderate income housing plan per state requirements. So, in the last session, there was quite a big emphasis on this portion of the general plan statute. And so let's kind of go over House Bill 462 in just a moment. One of the things I wanted to point out, this is just some basic, and I'm not going to go too in depth about any of this. This is pulled from a housing needs assessment that is done every year by Local Housing Solutions. This was actually completed in August of 2022. However, most of the data that they're using comes from the census of 2020. So recognizing how crazy the last couple of years have been, some of this information has probably changed a little. The good news, poverty rate in Springville has decreased from 8.2% to 7.2% since the last census. Renter households have increased in that period of time, as you can see there. And renter households that are moderately or severely burdened has increased from 39.6 to 46.1. So let me tell you, that moderately or severely burdened, moderately is they are spending 30% of their, or more, up to 50% of their income on housing. And severely burdened is they are spending 50% or more on their on rent. So you can see that that's jumped up quite a bit. In 2020, you see the median home value of $290,000, which had increased 42% since 2010. However, the August 2022 median list price of $508,300 is a 74% increase over those 2020 home values.
Pretty crazy, huh?
It's insane, yes. And so that is why a couple of bullets down, you see the median income, family income in Springville is fairly good at $80,696. But when you break that down to a $508,000 home, my gut feeling is that number of moderately or severely cost burdened has probably increased if you look at the cost of housing, especially trying to get into it if you're trying to get into a new home with current interest rates. So just some food for thought. And then the total number of housing units of 11.9 lagged behind the increase in the population of 20.3, and the number of jobs in Springville has increased by 36% from the 2002 to 2017. So this kind of goes along with what we're hearing statewide: housing shortages, increased population. So just kind of confirms that those kind of things are also happening in Springville directly.
But on the positive side, the number of jobs
Yes.
is a pretty huge increase just for inside of Springville.
Exactly, and
So I
that's
think
just
that's
and that's
excellent.
just up to 2017, and that doesn't look at what has happened in the last 5 years because the job
Which would be
market.
even higher.
Yes, we have a very strong job market throughout the state, and Utah County is one of the highest in the state.
Yeah.
So in 2019, Senate Bill 34 added the requirement that cities with 5,000 or more population had to do the moderate income housing, and that they are required to report on their compliance. House Bill 462 passed its last session, went and added a few more. They clarified the requirements and the timing to amend the general plan, that it had to be done before October 1st, when we have to make our report. Requires an inclusion of an implementation plan. It amended the list of strategies that they provided, and outlines the annual reporting requirement, as well as adding incentives and restrictions for compliance with the moderate income housing requirement. So it left three options to do. We had to do one of them by October 1st of 2022. That's why we're here now, to amend or adopt the general plan with a moderate income housing element that utilizes the newly revised list of strategies and submit the moderate income housing report to the state. Your option one, keep your three strategies with an implementation. That's your basic, you meet the basic requirement, statutory requirement, that's it. Option two, you can pick new strategies and corresponding implantation. Oh, hi. We'll just ignore that typo. Implementation timeline for each. That meets your base requirement and shows that you're trying to reach that priority consideration. We've chosen option three, to incorporate at least two strategies beyond the base requirement, and adopt and implement strategy for each. That allows us to be in priority consideration for funding, which is, they take it down to transportation funding, basically any type of funding. So that is why we felt that would be in the best interest. So before I go into this, let me just kind of clarify a couple of things. The original language from 2019 is in parentheses. The bolded language is what is added in 2022. They made it a little bit more strict on what you needed to do. And the item in red is a strategy that we have added to meet that requirement for the funding. So rezone for densities to facilitate rather than to just assure the production of moderate income housing. Demonstrate investment rather than facilitate. The rehabilitation of infrastructure that facilitates rather than encourages the construction of moderate income housing. Create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached. The other one just said for ADUs in general in residential zones. Zone or rezone rather than just allow for higher density or moderate income residential development in commercial and mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors, commercial centers, or employment centers. Amend land use regulation to allow for rather than just encourage higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. With the coming of the Springville Frontrunner, we are working on the station area plan, which is also a part of state requirement of state law. And so that is why we went ahead and focused on the major transit investment corridors, once again, just to be proactive rather than reactive to state law. So I'm going to go into the one in red. and this is where it might get a little dicey. So, demonstrate investment in the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income. So at this time, this city staff is working to put together a policy that will come before you, will come before, I believe it comes before the Planning Commission, correct? Yeah, I'm not really sure. Anyway, it will come before the City Council for adoption as a city policy. Public infrastructure districts were set up in 2019 by state law. They allow for developers to request from the city the right to create a public infrastructure district. It is created by the city, completely separate from the city as a specific entity, and it allows them to borrow at the municipal rate with tax-free bonds, and therefore lowers the cost of development. That's the extremely 101 version of public infrastructure districts. We can get more into them at another time.
Right now, that's not allowed, or that's not happening.
No, you can't. The state allows for public infrastructure districts, but cities have to adopt policies before they can allow, and we do not have a policy at this time. So that's what we're working on. We have been approached about establishing a public infrastructure district by developers, and so right now that's just on hold until this policy is adopted. One of the things that is required in having a public infrastructure district is that in return for being able to borrow at this lower rate and to be able to sell tax-free bonds, is that they have to provide some public benefit. And we will be suggesting to the City Council that the public benefit is that they provide a certain amount of deed-restricted homes or units, whatever if they're building multifamily or single-family developments, and what that percentage will be, your number will be part of the discussion, but they will have to set aside deed-restricted units that will always be sold as moderate income in order to be able to be granted the right to do a public infrastructure district by the city. Like I said, we're currently working on that as part of as staff, reviewing all of that, putting that together, and we'll be presenting that to the City Council. So that is one that we've added that will be a fairly significant impact because it will, if they want to be able to do that, they will have to provide a certain amount of housing units. So we'll see how that goes.
That will be interesting.
It will be. It will be very interesting. Other cities
Quite a
have
few
done it.
places have adopted already in Utah.
Yes, and a lot of them have, because you can do a public infrastructure for residential or commercial development, and there's various financing ways that they do these. But the hope is that with requiring a percentage of units to be deed restricted, it meets a couple of different things. One, it keeps moderate income housing on the moderate income housing market rather than when they're resold, selling at market rate. It also allows for moderate income to be throughout the community, which rather than located in just a certain segment of the city or whatever, but it allows them to be integrated into developments and therefore integrated better in the community.
Just out of curiosity, are the benefits for developers pretty significant?
They can be, yes.
Or is
It can be a fairly significant difference in interest rates for the amount of money that they're borrowing. So they're worthwhile. The developers are the ones who helped write the law and have been using it based upon Colorado have had laws like this, had a public infrastructure district for quite a while.
Are developers flocking to it, or are they just piecemealing a little bit?
A little bit of both.
Josh,
So
have you seen that in Colorado a little bit?
Well, I don't have any experience in
Or in
Colorado, really.
in
but-
Colorado, they're very, very popular. Our law fixed a lot of the problems that Colorado has had. As far as funding and different mechanisms. So in ways, our public infrastructure law in state statute is a little bit stricter than Colorado's and has learned from their programs.
And it's very, very new, obviously,
Yes.
as Carla mentioned. And it's really, it has to, one of the in the weeds things that makes it hard or makes people not come out all the time asking for it is that all of the property within the proposed PID has to be owned by the people that are asking for the PID.
And you have to have 100%, whereas in like a special district, the percentage is not. And so that is why most of these public infrastructure districts are on large, undeveloped land owned by one or two developers.
So that's where
property
we've
owners.
had the interest in one and potentially two areas where there's a large piece that's under single ownership and needs some significant offsite utility improvements
In order for it to happen.
in order for it to happen. And they're
Yeah.
just ahead of our capital improvement plan, so this allows them to kind of move money forward by bonding against future revenue.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, yes.
we're- As you mentioned, we're also not sure how the financial returns, depending on the funding mechanism, because they are a somewhat higher risk vehicle, because the city doesn't guarantee the bonds, and the value of the property or the improvements doesn't guarantee the bonds. So basically, it just leaves bondholders waiting for payback if something goes south. So the rates are priced accordingly. So we're waiting to kind of see how that balances out between the discount for being able to bond at a tax-free rate, the savings from issuing tax-free bonds versus the increased interest rate justified by the higher risk vehicle.
I hope it
So-
comes to planning commission. I'd like to review it. That would be fun.
Okay, well, yeah, and if any of you want to talk a little PID over lunch, give me a call. I've spent way more time talking about PIDs than I ever thought I would. So, anyway, that is what you have before you. This is an amendment to the general plan, since the moderate income housing element by state statute now has to be included in the general plan. And so that is why we are here before you tonight. And that's pretty much it for you, unless I can answer any other questions.
And one more thing, just to highlight the importance of this element, is that amendments to the general plan are one of the few things that actually requires a hearing before the city council as well. So not only will you open this for public hearing and with the planning commission, but there will be a hearing before council instead of just the standard public meeting where they act on your recommendation. So that as the primary policy, high-level policy setting vehicle for the city, the general plan is viewed with a lot of importance and provided ample opportunity for the public to be involved. So I'm glad to see all these people showing up to talk about this tonight.
Yeah.
Wow, that didn't land.
I know, yeah, because they're like, yeah, they don't think you're funny.
Well, neither is my wife.
The late show circuit.
Did you have a slide that listed the changes?
Whoops, now I'm on it. These will be the strategies that are adopted. And then the actual section of the plan is included in your packet as the Springville Moderate Income Housing Plan 2022 update. This just gives a quick overview of existing housing supply, area median income, and then the strategies checklist is attachment 2.
Right.
All right, and the specific strategies are also listed in the general plan portion. They're broken down more with the checklist and the implementation plan in attachment 2. Do you want me to stay up here for any
Thanks,
questions?
you're
You're
good.
good? All right.
You're good, thanks.
No questions? Okay. And there's, of course, no applicant here because it's the city. So we will move to the public hearing portion. Do we have a motion for the public hearing?
Move to open the public hearing.
And I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing is now open. By raise of hands, does anybody want to come? Great. So same instructions as before. Please state your name and address.
Emma Patching, 848 South 750 West.
Good job.
It sounds like you guys are pushing this medium and high density because of a state law. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Okay. But
To be
it's
clear, one of
related
those-
to rezoning and smaller lots and. And maybe bigger buildings, packing more people in a smaller space. So basically, what I said. Yeah. I just want to make it known that that's a concern for me because I moved to Springville. Instead of, I work in Pleasant Grove. It would have been a way shorter commute to move up there where a lot of the new developments are hardly any elbow room. And I moved here because I thought, oh, Mapleton and Springville, they have a little more elbow room in their zoning. And I just want to make that, known to you guys that that's like something that people consider when they want to move here in Springville. They don't want this massive populace wrecking the feel of this area. So that's all I wanted to.
Thank you for your, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, thank you. And we would always encourage to contact your legislators, senators, and let them know how you feel about state policy and how it impacts our communities and the options that we have.
Maybe just one response to that, if we could. Is that
Yeah.
okay? Is that be all right? The first part of your question was, is this some kind of a state law or something that we're up against? And I don't know, maybe the best way to say it, and maybe you two might want to chime in on this, but there is a Utah state code that has been adopted, and that's why Chairman Ellington has talked about talking to your representatives, because there is a code it's Utah State Code 10-9A-408 that comes directly to us that mandates that we need to require cities to update and review their moderate income housing plan as part of their general plan update. So we have a general plan, and then we have to update that. And as we do that, then we're required by law, by the state, every city, to be able to update that and include their plans for moderate income housing, so that there are those who can't afford some housing, that there's some housing available for them. So by law, we're mandated to do that. So that's why this item was on the agenda tonight, because the city has put together their plan to accomplish that and to look at those items that need to be looked at. It's not that we're pushing anything. It's not that we're trying to say. We have to fulfill the requirement by law. Every city in the state of Utah has to do it. And so we've got the plan together. That's the plan that's been brought before the Planning Commission, that which would then go, if we approve tonight, would then go to the city council. And it's pretty generic. I mean, there's not a whole lot there. It's the real nuts and bolts are what's going to happen on the next item, when you guys are probably a lot of you are here for. So, did I answer that okay? Is that kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, I can provide a little more information if I can do that now, or I can do that at the conclusion of the hearing, whichever you'd like.
I think now's probably good.
Yeah, Josh,
better
did you want to speak to that? or-
Yeah, sure. Like you said, this is a requirement of state law, and there are actual punitive or punishments, essentially, in the law if we don't do this. And one of the big teeth in this new law is that we lose access to some transportation funding. And that's, we get a substantial amount of money from the state each year that comes from the gas tax that is used to maintain our local streets. So that's a big element of it. And another thing to note is that most of the things on this list we've actually already done and have been in place in the city for 20 years, essentially, like since the Westfield's Westfield Central's on the mind. Westfield's community plan was adopted in 2002, such as the zone or rezone allow for higher density or middle and moderate income housing development and commercial mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. That plan from 20 years ago established the town center, or the village center, sorry, in the area surrounding 12th West and 4th South down to 9th South and North. That really does that. Almost 3 years ago, we adopted a citywide accessory dwelling unit ordinance. We've amended land use regulations to the last point with the Main Street South Gateway Zone that was adopted almost 2 years ago. So really, except for the red one, we've made substantial progress in at meeting these requirements, and don't anticipate that there's going to be drastic policy level changes that completely change the direction or the character of our community to adhere to or to implement these items. But there are something we consider every time we do a plan, from the Lakeside Landing to the Main Street and 1600 South plan we're doing right now to the general plan that we're just getting underway with.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm Heidi. I'm at 871 Matea Lane in Springville. I just have a question for you. So you're talking about the moderate income housing, and that has to be dedicated to specifically large swaths of land together. So
does that finish your question? I'll let you.
that's the first question. So help me understand that first.
So no, moderate income housing can be throughout the community. It can be one unit. It can be any number. The public infrastructure districts, because of the way they are set up in state law, typically are only requested because they require 100% of the property owners in those districts to agree to become a public infrastructure district. Those are typically only requested when there is large undeveloped areas of land under one ownership.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Does
that
that
does.
clarify it?
That does make sense.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that in our community we're not creating essentially slums of lower income housing. And well, for that lower income housing, I do understand the support that's needed by transportation, because with those needs comes other transportation needs to get to and from work and closer to the new track station that has been approved. So I do think that there is a great place, but we just want to make sure that my concern is that we are being mindful of the community that we are developing here in Springville.
Yes, and moderate income housing is not necessarily equated with slum housing. We're not talking about projects that you see in large cities.
Yes.
This moderate income is 80% of the median county income, and so that's still a really good income. It's just with the cost of housing, we need to.
And are we taking it off of today's values, because today's markets are going down? Because you, in your presentation, took from August, that was kind of the peak of the housing. Is there a plan to kind of reevaluate it?
Well, it's not based on the value of the home. It's the median income is based upon
Not the income, but you were talking about the disparity of the income, to the price of the home.
Yes, we don't anticipate, from what most of the people in the real estate residential retail market, is that home prices will drop down to the $290,000.
That is true.
They'll still stay fairly high.
Essentially, the math just takes care of itself.
Yeah.
It is whatever's less than 30% of 80% of the area median income.
Okay.
So as housing goes down, if wages hold steady, then that gap shrinks. If housing goes up and wages hold steady, the gap grows. And we update this plan every year with census data based on income through the American Community Survey, and then with market data.
Okay, sounds great, because you also talked about using old data of 2017. So
Yeah, that was just, that's, so the the ACS, American Community Survey, is actually done yearly, and looks at a 5-year span, so that it kind of makes up that gap that we have from census data, which is typically 10
Yeah,
years
the
old.
2017 data was just employment numbers, the last data we have on total job numbers, not wage or housing price.
Yeah, that was just on the number of jobs.
And I just want to reiterate that with just going up to accommodate this, we do have to have smaller lots, smaller housing units to decrease the price of homes. I mean, you can't build a big home for less money. So we do know that there's gives and takes that have to take in place, but we just want to make sure that I just want to make sure that we're being mindful of how we're doing that.
Yes, and I think that both our planning commission and our city council is very deliberative when we bring these items up to them. So thank you very much for your
Thank you.
concern.
I'm Thomas Ashton, 947 South, 875 West Springville. I guess I should have a couple of questions about this. Mainly is, I noticed that the push or drive to do this was for prioritization of funds with the state. And I'm curious, can somebody kick back a couple of steps on this slide for me? Perfect, thank you. So that's what I wanted. So I noticed we had three options here. One of them is option one is keep 3 strategies. And this is basically, you said we're already meeting that requirement. Option 2 is to meet the requirement and then add new implementation. Option 3 is 2 implementation strategies. Looking at this and seeing everything that's going on already, and there's a reason that there's so many people here tonight, it makes me wonder, why are we not being cautious about this and being a little bit less gung-ho about jumping in with both feet and starting with option 3 with multiple strategies, kicking everything off without understanding fully how everything is going to pan out. In my mind, it seems better to be cautious than toss care to the wind and just kind of jump in and do everything we can. And I understand that there is a funding there, we have to be practical about those kind of things, and there is a reason for those, to push to get prioritization of, as they said, with funds. But it does seem a little bit cavalier to go with multiple options when we're still in a cautious phase of trying to figure things out to begin with. We have had a lot of upset citizens, and it seems to surround zoning and organization in the communities. And so with that, I think that I believe you stated that our character of the community is something we want to be mindful of. It seems like that's been tossed to the wind, considering a lot of different things that are happening, but especially that we're jumping in with strategies to change zoning, to change how we're handling housing, how we're handling these environments with, again, not a ton of understanding. It seems, not by just myself, but it seems that not a lot of people understand what this exactly entails. And I know that we do have to put this as a requirement, but why are we not doing the minimum base requirement and then building on that as we go through the next few years to really get an idea of what we're dealing with and how it's going to affect our communities, not just cutting us off at the knees when we realize, oh, this is a lot bigger than we thought it was, or this is going to require a lot more, and put us in a position where we have to backtrack. I guess that's my biggest concern with this. So, thank you.
Josh, it's my understanding, isn't it, that in regard to, going to that option 3, that some of those, the other couple of strategies beyond the base requirement were already in our community anyway.
Yeah, we've had 4 for 2019, 2020, 2021. So this is the 4th year of implementing these strategies and the 4th year of reporting on that. We just added that one strategy because we are investigating the possibility of implementing a PID policy. And the thing to be particularly mindful on that one is that we don't have a policy yet. We don't know that the City Council will adopt a policy. If the City Council adopts a policy, they still have the ultimate discretion in each and every case when a public infrastructure district is requested to make whatever decision they find is in the public interest. So they can say yes or no, independent of what the policy says. The policy just provides guidance to us and to the private sector. And the exact implementation of that, if all those dominoes tipped over and we were to adopt a PID district and the council was to adopt a policy that said, oh, we want some moderate income housing in those areas that have PIDs, then we'd have to develop specific regulations and implementation measures to do that. So this is really at a policy level, and is a couple steps removed from where it would have direct impact on the ground to deed restricting any individual housing unit. But yes, the other 4 strategies have been on our books for 4 years, or 3 years, however that math works out.
So there's just the one additional that was in red
Correct.
previously that you're adding,
Correct.
you're recommending to add to this plan.
And in our packet, that's numbered 1 through 5, right? Sort of.
And for the audience.
Yes, 1 through 5 are all of the strategies. Number 2 is the new one.
Yeah, so for the audience, that would be that one slide that had the red. Maybe we could pull that one back up one more time. And is that the only difference between options 1 and 3? In essence, Josh?
No, option 1 is just keep what you have and write better implementation measures that meet the new code. 2 is put a timeline with those. And option 3 is add more strategies so that you end up on the top of the heap when funding decisions are made.
And the main reason for going with option 3 is?
It's because we are already doing pursuing a policy that was one of the options, and it made sense to us to permit the city to investigate that option rather than to limit that option by not putting it in. Even if we put that in and nothing happens in the intervening year or 2 years, we just report back to the state and say nobody's come in for a PID, or the city council hasn't said yes to any PIDs. It just essentially provides us a larger menu of options to choose from to satisfy the statutory requirements in the state code.
So can the city council deny a PID if a developer comes in?
Yes, yeah, the city council has complete discretion over establishing a PID or not.
Now, is PID a state requirement, or this is just an optional?
No, a PID is one of the many strategies that the state offers.
Strategy, not
They essentially gave you a menu, and you have to pick a minimum number from that menu. You can't come up with your own, unfortunately.
Right. I remember
right-
going through that list a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there's others such as, work with a nonprofit or governmental partner to develop, substantially like low-income housing in your city. There's those type of strategies that are more impactful that we did not choose.
So right now would be to include that as part of a plan to basically do some investigative work, some research, some planning, but nothing in terms of what would happen until it came back with approval from Planning Commission, City Council.
Correct. The general plan is a policy document. It's non-regulatory. It doesn't have any land use regulation or other regulatory power, but it does contain the stated policy direction of the city and has a long list of requirements in state law for that document to be in conformance with requirements.
And there could be a lot of other things included that we've already got included as part of our plan that come before the Planning Commission, City Council that we do not approve, even though that's been investigated and we've looked at them. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
So there've been a number-
All types of, in your tenure on the commission, I think you've, in my memory, recommended denial on 3 general plan amendments. So yeah, a general plan amendment, and I'll get into this a little bit on my item, is a legislative item. So it is, this board just recommends to the city council, and the city council has full discretion to make whatever decision they want as long as it's reasonably arguable that it's in the public interest.
Just trying to ask questions so maybe the audience could get a better feel for what this item is about.
And thank you very much.
Yep.
I have to state my name again?
Yes.
Emma at 848 South 750 West.
You're gonna get it.
Are you?
The PIDs, is there an example? You were saying there's some in Colorado or something. Are there any in existence in Utah that you know of?
Yes, there's quite a few in Utah.
Can you list a few of them? for us?
The first one that was done was Provo did one to get the Norda Hospital. Payson has recently done one. I believe it's the commercial district. Hurricane has done them for both commercial and residential. I think a little bit more mixed use than pure residential. St. George, Washington County area has done some for some rather large tourist-related developments based upon the type of tourist industry they have in St. George. So there's been
Anything north?
trying to think. I believe
Bear Lake.
Bear Lake it was looking at one. Garden City was looking at one. They've been approached by numerous developers. I believe they finally did adopt a policy. I don't know, and mainly that is for development of residential that is typically used as short-term rental for tourists in the area.
So if they get approved, do you guys have any say on, like, buffer zones and things like that?
So the PIDs, I think there's a little confusion. A PID is
It's an approval
it's
for-
not a zone.
Yeah, it's not a zone.
It's just a funding mechanism. So your neighbor next door could be in a PID and you wouldn't know it. They just know it because there might be an assessment on their
So it's
taxes.
just a really
Yeah,
nice
it's
deal
a-
for somebody
It can be,
who is wanting to develop.
depending, there are a number of mechanisms within
there-
it, but that's part of our concern is we want to make sure that we're not just permitting a entity to be created that allows a developer to pass on costs to homeowners. That's not in our best interest. So our policy limits, the proposed policy limits it primarily to commercial development and has some other opportunities based on some other mechanisms. But again, we just have a draft policy. It hasn't gone to the city council. The city council has heard some presentations and we've received feedback, but we're still working internally on the draft. And once a policy is adopted, that just provides guidance to the city and the private development community. And then they have to come in and ask for one each and every time, and it doesn't change anything about zoning. So you could have a PID for the Smiths, or you could have a PID for your subdivision.
The zoning is still all of the requirements that are on the zone for that property. So it has nothing to do with zoning, design. All of that will still go through the same processes with the city.
I also had another question about the option 1, 2, 3. You were stating that you're basically in option 3. Can you revert back and backtrack to an option 1 and like slow it down like the other gentleman said?
Well, we've already, like we've said a couple of times, 4 of the policies have been in effect, and
Undo them is what I'm saying. Can you
yeah, we can.
simplify back to the option 1?
I mean, there's always, there's nothing in the state code that says you can't. We can reduce down to 3. But since we felt that as a city, since the 4 had already been in there for, 3 to 4 years now at this time, really we're not, the only thing we're updating is the language that the state required changes to. And the only one that we're adding is the one in red, the public infrastructure district possibility. You bet.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Passmore. I live at 950 South Spring Canyon Way. And I moved here about a year and a half ago from a state that some people seem to have a need to tell me to go back to. I hope that I can add more to the community than the only thing is to go back to where I came from. I didn't know much about Springville at all when I came here. I had looked at housing online, and I have to say that I really like the feel of Springville, and I like the community. That's something that was lacking a bit from my previous state. I will say that the density where I came from, North San Diego County, was much greater than here. And there were issues that we don't or didn't seem to have there that are here. And I would be very concerned about adding to the density when I'm already seeing issues, major issues with major traffic accidents, and police that only seem to have time to react versus prevent. Parks, there is not one park in this huge development that I'm in, and that there's so many young families. I always thought parks were just number one, especially in a community like this. Considering schools as well, where you're having a hard time getting teachers now, and the schools they're putting ads up for substitute teachers and bus drivers. I think that there's more to consider, and I understand there are legal things that you have to do, and I certainly don't minimize the tough job that you have. You've got a really hard job. I would like for people to be able to work smart and innovative, rather than saying, look at that big farm, let's build 10,000 houses there. We can have a good price for them. There's a character here that would really be unfortunate to lose. I don't know if you've ever gotten together and said, let's just dream. What do we want it to feel and look like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? Some of us may not be here in 10 years, but there are younger families that are going to want to be here. And I hate the idea of them being satisfied with a hugely dense population with tall buildings, when there is land that doesn't crunch everybody together. I'm looking at my crazy notes that I've been writing down. I do have a question, and I don't know if this is something you can answer because it's flexible or it moves. What is the median income density here? What is that median income that you're looking to serve? And what is the housing range for that group?
That'd be an answer for those guys.
Right.
Do you know what county AMI is? Do you have that in the?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. So the area, because we look at the county, not the specific city, it's based upon the county. The area median income for Utah County is $77,057. At 80% of that for moderate income housing, that's $61,646 a year. Low of 50% is $38,529, and very low at 30% is $23,117. So,
I can't imagine living on that kind of an income.
yeah, and so when you're looking at a house that is $508,000 as the median cost of a home, even for someone making the median income in Springville, which is $3,000 more than the county median income, you're still looking at most of them will be paying 30% of their income at $80,000.
We do the math on what housing is aimed there,
Right.
based on
Yeah.
whatever mortgage cost, total all-in housing costs or rent are equal to or less than that 30% of that number.
Let me also say, I think it's really smart to take a look at your transportation. What it's the Frontliner, is that what it's called? Front Runner. I've used it myself, and I think it's wonderful. I'm one of those, I don't want it in my backyard, but it's close enough that it would hopefully be very easy to use. The other thing I've noticed as I've driven around, I take different routes, and there are so many really cute, neat, old houses in this city that have such great character. And I think that a strategy that should be in place is to come up with a way, either grants, low-income loans, I don't know what, to fix some of those homes up to get young people. I have a niece and nephew who just bought a house on 200, and they put a lot of work in it, and it's darling. It's a little small for them, but they're looking to the future as well. And if you could get more of those homes in those areas that maybe people are not thinking they want to move into, fixed up a bit, that could also help with that low income and median income density. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hey, Josh, just a quick question. So PID, we're talking about PID really here, right?
No, I mean,
Well, we
No.
Well, we kind of the strategy that you've added to it, right, is to encourage additional
that if we do a
construction.
PID, we want some moderate income housing in it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the moderate income housing does not necessarily mean smaller lots and that kind of stuff, right?
No, you can deed restrict
That's
your house if you
but
wanted to.
I think it's important that we all acknowledge that this is not saying, oh, gosh, we're gonna have a whole bunch of small lots, we're gonna go high, we're gonna put more houses in a smaller area. That's not what this is saying at all.
Because you can go to Salt Lake and spend $3,000 a month on on an 800 square foot one bedroom. So there is a correlation. It's harder to build affordable houses on quarter acre lots with 20-foot setbacks all around it. That makes it harder.
But it has to
making
be
it small
approved.
doesn't necessarily. Yes, it has to be.
Has to be approved here, and it has to be approved.
Yes, this doesn't change any zoning on the ground. This doesn't change what's happening in anybody's backyard. This doesn't change any regulatory requirement of the city. It's just adopting a policy that the city considers and reviews when making regulatory decisions.
But the PID is the motivator.
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
someone were to come in, a developer, and request a PID for an area that's zoned R110, then they would still have 10,000 square foot minimum lot size.
Yes.
And we would just ask them to restrict 2 of those lots if they wanted to build 20 homes. I mean, this is just, I'm kind of throwing out numbers, to be deed restricted, but they'd still be 10,000 square foot lots.
Thank you, that's the point.
Yeah, all right, I want to clarify that.
Yeah. So it's important that everyone here, first of all, thank you to all of you who have come up and made comments. But it is important to note that this does not change the size of lots and stuff like that. And even Kay leaned over to me for a moment. He was a developer in his previous life. And he said, I don't even see a lot of people even adopting these things. So anyway, go ahead.
Yes, I was trying to understand exactly what's happening here, because I know the city council operates on information, ideas, theories, policies that we have perhaps no idea of how to put our finger on them. One of the reasons that brought me here today was basically what the young lady that spoke before has made clear, that there is a community spirit here, a community personality that makes this a nice place to live. However, we've been here since 2014. And the building in the area in which we live, which is basically from 400 South to 1200 South, from I-15 to the railroad tracks, the building here has completely ignored that community personality, which we really enjoyed the first time we got here. We had family dwellings all around us. We got to the point to where we knew everybody, and of course COVID and a number of other things have made us all strangers and foreigners among the community we live in now. She made the comment that lack of state parks, playgrounds where kids can go. I see nothing like that being built in this area. The building project, which brought me here tonight, is right across the street from the elementary school on 700 South and 950 West. The plan, I believe, was to put condominiums in there. And if I understand the original introduction, which brought up this subject, was that investors applying for medium income housing can get a break on the income or the percentage rate with which they borrow money. Instead of being able to build a 3-story building, you can build a 4-story building because the money was cheap. What I've learned about medium income housing is that it is extremely difficult to maintain a rental versus a mortgage. A lot of times in minimum income for individuals means they can't manage the financing to buy a house. Now, if there's a lack of housing, that's one thing. I have no objection to minimum income housing projects. And the policy of the commission here in Springville should address that. But I think that the policy should also extend to the very goodwill of the community in which they're going to apply their policy. And right now, I would say where we are living and where this particular project across from the elementary school is coming up completely lacks the approval and the heartfelt sympathy that the city council would actually benefit from because of what they're doing in that area. There are no playgrounds. There's a playground at the school, but you can't go there until the school's out if the gate's open or you can squeeze through. But there are no real, there's nothing coming up that seems to speak to family concerns, especially families with low, with children, with young children growing up, kids going to school. In front of our house, before they plowed a road through the field, it was like living in a cul-de-sac. Now we have 27 busloads full of students going up and down our street. The traffic in that area has increased exponentially compared to what it was before. And what you're trading when you go to condominiums as opposed to single building houses is you're going from horizontal population to vertical population, which requires more resources, especially now when we're in a drought. A single family dwelling uses a finite amount of water. And I don't mind them using the water that I'd love to use on my land, on my garden or my lawn. I don't care. But when you stack families on top of each other, then you have more resources being used in a smaller area. I would exhort the building commission to look at that aspect of community development. There is a need for low-income housing, I know that. But there's also, you don't want to create a situation that degrades the community and the neighborhood by bringing in so much vertical population that it entrenches on, that it becomes intrinsic against others who live about them. And you do have resource development, resource problems that don't exist in a horizontal population that do exist in a vertical population that conflicts with one another. And it can be as simple as the sewage system being greatly impacted to a larger degree than normally is expected. So what brought me here today was a little tag that was left on my porch saying that the builders across from the elementary school want to change the policy of the building commission to become medium income housing developers so that they can increase the height of their buildings that they're building and do it with a more reasonable investment expenditure. And that's basically all I have on that. I love Springville, and I love the community that has accepted me in. But I am concerned about the way development is traveling when you do not consider the peripheral personality around a project site that fills your needs. Thank you.
Really quick.
Madam
Can I
Chair,
get
can I
your
make a
name
quick-
and address?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm William McCrary. I'm at 717 South, 750 West in Springville.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, clearly we have a lot of people that want to speak tonight. Maybe we should
Yep.
limit the time for comments, just so that
And-
everybody can get an opportunity.
And perhaps suggest that they wait until we get to the next item to talk about it instead of,
Yep. Thank you. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Are there any further comments on this item?
Hello, my name is David Strebe. I live at 741 West, 900 South. I know you just discussed waiting to move to the next item. Father of three, I've got to get home and help my wife with bedtime. Understand that medium income housing is important. My wife and I, we've been there where the struggle is real, and it takes a lot of hard work to achieve what you want for your family. And I just want to voice my concern with proximity and location. Take into considerations, please, the elementary schools. Our concern as a family is medium income housing inevitably leads to higher density, which leads to higher traffic. Spend half an hour to an hour at any intersection in the proximity of Meadowbrooks Elementary School, and you could count on more than two hands the number of non-stops at stop signs, and it'll just increase with the traffic. The concern of higher density traffic along that school rate, I just don't understand the importance of having that right in front of a middle school that's already pressured for substitute teachers. My wife is a substitute teacher and constantly is receiving requests from teachers at that school and other elementary schools for substitutes. Bus drivers are needed, so it just adds that pressure onto the elementary school, adds that pressure onto the traffic in that specific area, but really any area. So I just ask, take into consideration location and proximity to communities and the effect that it'll have on that area. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, seeing no more comments at the microphone, do we have a motion to close the public hearing for this item?
moved.
No,
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion second, okay, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any discussion on this item from commissioners?
I just think the main thing is for us to remember that this is just a plan.
Yes.
All we're here today for this particular item is to approve the plan. That there's no policy or anything associated with it, just we've got a plan in place and we're looking at a plan for the city to be able to move forward. And no policy issues are gonna come from it until way later, and so.
And any policy issue or zone change or anything else is evaluated on individual basis
Correct.
according to all considerations. I'm sorry, we've already closed the public
already
hearing.
closed.
At
Yeah.
this time, it is just this.
Let's move on.
Well, and my thinking is, and I can talk with you and just listen as I maybe talk a little bit, but my concern is with the public, and I am concerned. But at the same time, I know that we have certain things that we need to do as a city. We are we're a body that has to move on items that come to us, and we just make recommendations. We're not making any policies in this particular body as a planning commission. And we'll make a recommendation to city council who would either approve or deny. So whatever we do today, whether we approve or deny, is just we're approving something that gets sent to the city council. And then the city council makes the final decision. And so maybe that would help just as you understand a little bit more how the city government works. and that it really is more that we make a recommendation that then the city council would make the final, which would go through the same process as this, with opportunity to talk about what's happening, input from the community, and then the final decision made with city council. So that would be, I think, a really wonderful thing for you to understand, so it would happen again. This isn't like a final thing that happens. And so there's recommendations.
We have
And
to
so-
recommend actions.
So,
Right. And if at any time we are concerned about any of these, we can revisit and we can choose other strategies, but strategies must be chosen. Sound about right?
With that being said, I would move to forward with a recommendation to the city council for approval of the proposed updates to the moderate income housing plan element of the general plan to the city council.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? If we don't have a second, do we have a substitute motion?
I'll make a substitute motion. I recommend, and is this recommendation have to go, I'm sorry, I'm new to this, go to the city council, or can I recommend something to the staff with my motion?
That we table this.
You have a number of options in terms of a motion. You can continue the motion with direction to staff. You can make an alternate recommendation to city council than what you've
Okay.
been presented with, and that's often, if you're looking at recommending to city council something different than what we've recommended, that's typically the easiest way to do it. And in this case, we do have a deadline of October 1st, so it's a drop dead that we have a recommendation to city council tonight. So if you're of a mind to recommend something alternate, we
Wait,
just-
tonight, you're saying tonight's a drop dead, so we have to make a recommendation to the city council?
Correct. 'Cause
We
this
can't,
has-
we can't continue.
No.
You just offered that as
Good
an
point.
option.
Generally, that would be an option. The council needs to act on this before October 1st. And we have one council meeting before October 1st. So we do need a recommendation. So if there is an alternate motion you'd like to make, such as do A, B, and C strategies instead of A, B, C, D, and E strategies, that's within your ability to make that motion.
if it's okay with the Madam Chair, I'd like to recommend another motion. My motion would be to approve the, what are we calling this?
Moderate income.
The moderate income housing plan without the item listed in red, which would be the demonstrating for
Item number 2.
for item number 2. And recommend that to the city council.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion passes and the recommendation will go forward to the city council at their meeting next Tuesday,
Correct.
at which time they will consider this item. Okay, moving on to the last item on our agenda, which I seem to have turned over.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I would just make a suggestion to those who are here tonight to understand that just because we make the recommendation to omit that other item doesn't mean that the city council will follow our recommendation. So the city council, again, could go ahead and approve whatever, the staff is recommending here tonight.
Okay,
You come to the city council meeting.
Well, and they're also available by email, and I mean, just look them up on if you have any questions come up afterwards. I mean, we can,
First and
Their
third,
email,
it's-
phone numbers, everything's available on the web, so.
it is.
first and third
and they
Tuesday.
value your input tremendously, just as we do tonight.
This meeting is recorded and notes and staff recommendations, everything from this meeting is available to
We
city
have-
council.
They review these minutes as part of their package.
We write a staff report
Yes.
to the city council that summarizes the discussion, the public input, the council, the staff presentation, the public comment or public hearing input and the planning commission discussion for the council. And we issue that to the council tomorrow in preparation for their meeting next week. And then, if, I don't know if you're aware or not, we now stream all of our planning commission and city council meetings on YouTube finally as of this year. So this recording is immediately available after the meeting for them to watch. I can't compel any city council member to read my staff report or to watch a video, but we do provide that information, and as their constituents, you're more than welcome to reach out to each of them individually to meet with them, to discuss with them. Different than the planning commission, which doesn't discuss items outside of the public meeting, but the city council, they're your representatives, they're your elected officials, so
And we
reach
also
out to
have
them.
a city council member who represents the city council in this committee, and so she's been here this evening, so she's heard the concerns as well. So
She's here, and
she's
the
here.
mayor has been here for a portion of the meeting as well.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Our last item on the agenda,
it's all available on.
Which one? The one for tonight or the one for? Yeah, the one for tonight is available at the meeting notice website, and I emailed that a copy of it, a PDF copy of it, to some of the email addresses I had in the neighborhood. So that was all posted with the public notices. But if you want me to just email you one, just drop me your email and I'll send you a copy.
And
And
Josh,
likewise for the city council.
yes, it will be, when the city council is noticed, it will,
Those
staff
packets
reports
are
will be available as well.
typically released on Thursday.
all you have to do is Google Springville City Council agenda, and you'll find a link that goes straight to the page. You can click on the packet for the meeting. It's the fastest way to do it. But that's just me.
Yeah, I don't navigate through our website unless I absolutely have to. So.
No. Okay. The next item is Lafferty Communities requests amendment to the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan to increase the maximum height from 35 feet to 45 feet to permit 3.5 stories on 8 townhouse units and 19 loft homes on interior lots not facing existing neighborhoods. This is also a public hearing item, and we will follow the same procedure we have with the previous items. We'll have first a presentation from city staff, and then if the applicant is here, we'll invite the applicant to also address the commission, and then at that point we will move to public hearing after a vote from the commission. So I'd like to invite Mr. Yost, Director Yost.
You gonna limit his time?
He's got like 45 seconds now. I'm kidding.
I can do it in 45 seconds. It may not facilitate the most informed discussion, but I'd like to just start out after by establishing just a couple elements of understanding, especially based on the discussion we've had on the previous item. What's before you tonight as the Planning Commission, and I say you, but I mean it's before all of us. And this last city I worked at, we could present from the side, and I could see you, but now I've just got all your eyes on my back. So I'm talking to all of you too, even though I'm not looking at you. Sorry. The proposal tonight does not change the unit count in the Westfield Central. It does not change the density. It does not change the type of any single unit. It is not modern income housing. Actually, I'll talk about that later, but I was initially hopeful that, hey, some of these cottages look cool. I think I'd really like to look at them. And then the builders started talking about what their price points were. And I thought, well, I think I'm staying in my 1990 tract home. So, yes, again, no change to the number of units, no change to the density, no change to the unit type, no change from townhome to apartment or house to townhome, and no change to what, I mean, the code doesn't mandate any price points. We're hoping, and I'll discuss that again later, that we might get some moderate income housing out of here, but that's yet to be seen. So that's kind of the things I wanted to address right up front, because I didn't address them specifically later in my report. So as I mentioned before, tonight is a legislative item, which means that it goes to the city council with your recommendation. And then the city council changes the code, and the standard, if somebody was to say, legally challenge the council's decision, they have essentially the standard we use to determine if they've made a good decision is whether it's reasonably debatable that it's in the public interest. So the city council has a lot of discretion to respond to their constituents and to what they view as the right thing for the community to make whatever decision they so choose. So there's really two primary issues here. The first one is, do the proposed amendments comply generally with Springville's adopted policies and ordinances? And they generally do, but this is a hard one to pin down because policies generally aren't specific to the point of recommending building heights. But to talk to what some people mentioned before, the policy level, the general plan is extremely important, and I would hesitate in minimizing the role of that document in informing the decisions we make down the road, because we try to keep everything in line. And as I heard people mentioning in the crowd, as we make policies, then we tend to refer to those policies and should when we make decisions. But generally, these policies aren't specific to the point of recommending specific building heights. The ordinances, the actual zoning code, is specific to the context of their application, like to where they're used and what they are. If this amendment is adopted by the city council, it will become part of that general city ordinance. For context, there is one other zone in the city that permits residential development to a height of 45 feet, and that's the Main Street South Gateway Zone that is currently only applied to Block 5, or, because no one knows the block numbers, the Allens Block. There is one other zone in this city that allows 4-story residential development, but really a 3.5-story, because the 4th story has to be set back from the front of the building, and that's the Lakeside Landing District. In some of its more central zoning areas permits that. So that, for context, that's the regulatory context that this recommendation sits within. The second is, do the proposed amendments maintain the integrity and intent of the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan? And that's really what I'm going to spend the majority of my presentation tonight reviewing, is the analysis of this question. So for background, the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan was presented to the Planning Commission on August 24th, 2021, with height regulations specified for each lot type individually. So the 3 townhouse estate lot type had a different height than the pair house or than the mixed-use building. So they were on a per lot basis. That was when it came to you. None of the height limits were described in feet, only in stories. And the 3 townhouse estate, or the 3 THE, and loft house lot types were described with a maximum height of 3.5 stories. Also, with 3.5 stories were the house, townhouse park under, stacked flat, muse house, apartment building, and shopfront mixed-use lot types. Those were all presented to the Planning Commission with a height of 3.5 stories. The Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council of the plan as written, including these multiple lot types with a 3.5-story maximum height. The new neighborhood plan was presented to the City Council on September 21st of 2021, and at that time, the Council requested that an overall height limit of 35 feet be added to the plan. This height limit was inserted on the regulating plan, and was applicable to all lot types. So it overrides each individual lot type's height regulations. So that's the background for how we got here. You may
Can I ask you
remember.
a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
The height goes to the top of the roof or to the midpoint of the roof?
For a flat roof, it goes to the top of the roof deck. And for a pitched roof, it goes to the midpoint between the gable and the peak of the roof.
The midpoint. Okay, thank you.
Mid-gable.
The roof type that you've seen a few where it's.
So if it's a shed roof, if it's anything but a flat roof, then it's mid-gable.
So it's half.
Correct. So even on a shed roof, it's mitigable.
Okay.
So it would be halfway between the top and the bottom, even though doesn't come back down the other side.
Thank you for that clarification.
Part of the mistake that I made as we went through this process in managing versions was that when the plan came back to the council in December as a result of input from the neighborhood and our failure to do our job in properly involving the neighborhood in the process, the version.
Please allow for the presentation to go forward. I know you have a lot to contribute, and we will get to the public hearing.
The version that I edited to put in the changes to the regulating plan to show the removal of units and the addition of park space, I didn't grab the version that we had edited on the fly in the city council meeting that had this maximum height for all lot types shall not exceed 35 feet. So some lot purchasers were under the impression that 3.5 stories was the overriding height requirement. And I don't, that's not an excuse for anything, it's just a part of the context of how we are, where we are today. So what the applicant's request is, Lafferty Communities desires to build 3 townhouse estate, and just to clarify if anyone's confused, because my proofreader was confused, a 3 townhouse estate is a lot type with 3 townhouses in it. It's not 3 townhouses,
It's just the title of that particular
title of the
style
lot
of
type.
house.
Correct.
Or a
And
building.
it is a building with 3 townhomes in it.
Correct.
Instead of the double that we typically see.
Or the 5 or 6,
Yeah.
or however, long in Anthem West or in Condy Farms, 5 or 6 in a row. So Lafferty desires to build 3 townhome estate and loft house units to a height of 3.5 stories. This isn't achievable under a 35-foot height limit, and therefore Lafferty is requesting a max height amendment to 45 feet for the 3 townhouse estate and loft house types. Specifically for units that are not adjacent to, meaning sharing a lot line with, or across the street from existing homes outside of the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan.
So these are interior lots only.
Correct. The locations of the affected lots are shown here on the plan. These are the 8 townhomes, and these are the 19 loft homes. For context, this is the aerial image of the area with the plat superimposed over the top with the units highlighted. This scale calls out 300 feet. Also for context, these surrounding lots are all subject to the existing 35-foot height limit, and you'll see that addressed as we talk about the visual impact to the existing community of that proposed height increase.
And what is that light pinkish brown color indicating?
That is the 5-acre park that is being dedicated and improved as part of this project. So to those with concerns about lack of open space or lack of parks, we're currently trying to figure out how to spend a lot more money than we planned to put an excellent playground in here and really meet the needs of the community. And this is not a park or an open space that would have happened if the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan would not have been adopted. The same development pattern to the north and south would have been implemented here. I'm not making a value judgment about that. Some people may prefer that. Some people may prefer having the park. Some people may not consider it a valuable trade-off. But that's part of the history of how we ended up where we are.
And Josh, also that kind of hockey stick area that's going down in the middle is also
That's all green.
This is a
dedicated for green space.
Correct. This is a publicly owned and maintained greenway running from 900 South up to the main park area on 950 West, and then connecting to the trail along the south side of 700 South. Okay. This is a perspective rendering from Lafferty Communities showing from essentially the southwest corner of 900 South and 950 South the visual impact of the units in question. I did request a correction to this to have it reference 45 feet, but was not able to receive that prior to the meeting. So this currently indicates 40 feet, and what you're seeing in this image is this semi-transparent box indicates the potential footprint of the stacked flat unit type, which is a 3-story, 1 unit per floor, essentially a condominium product, and the images behind, or the buildings that you can see in solid behind, are the loft homes, and over here is one of the the 3 townhome units. So this shows the artist's conception of, and I generally believe it to be accurate, of the visual impact to this somebody standing on the ground at that point. The common critique, and one I share of these drawings, is that we load them up with people and load them up with trees, so it looks softer and nicer. But I generally believe that if you stood here, that this comparison here is an accurate portrayal of that these buildings at the front would block your view of the buildings on the interior. These are elevations, updated elevations of the 45-foot one of the elevations. There's a number of plans for each one of these products, but this shows one plan at 45 feet for the townhouses, so only one of the 3 units in the 3 townhome estate would go to that additional unit. So that's why you kind of saw that blue line at the edge of these 3 townhome estate lots, and they'd all be where the blue line is, lot indicates. And these are not final architectural designs. Each architectural design is still subject to staff approval by a provision in the development agreement. The community development director, myself, meets with the applicant and determines whether each of these elevations comply with the regulations adopted in the ordinance. So we have a little more ability to push on the applicant in regards to architecture than we do otherwise. This is an image of the loft home. So this is the smaller of the homes that is essentially a 3-story home on top of a ground floor garage. That's potentially the most affordable of the single family attached units. Again, affordable, I would put that in air quotes, because it's many times what I paid for my house, most likely. So moving on to the analysis, the first element of the analysis is whether it meets the original intent of the Westfield Central Neighborhood Plan. And that original intent's best summarized by the original Planning Commission staff report from last year. I'm not going to read that to you, but I do have that on a final slide if we're interested in reviewing it. And a change to the height of a limited number of units doesn't contradict that stated intent, nor does staff feel that it diminishes the plan's potential for fulfilling the intent, particularly because the intent was more focused on creating a community, a neighborhood with a central gathering space with a civic feel that focused to the pedestrian, that moved cars to alleys and provided plenty of opportunities for people to engage with their neighbors and with the neighborhood and have somewhere to walk and a reason to walk and a comfortable walk at that. Next is the visual impact. So Lafferty provided that perspective drawing that was in your packet as attachment 2, showing that the view of the 45-foot tall loft homes from across 900 South would be blocked by the planned buildings on the north side of 900 South that adhere to the existing 35-foot height limit. The 45-foot lot homes would not be visible from the ground level of any of the perimeter streets, except where they could be seen through the gaps in the surrounding buildings. It's also anticipated, and this is something, again, I didn't have a section illustration or a section drawing to determine technically, that some portions of the increased height could be visible from the upper stories of some of the adjacent homes. The visual impact would primarily be limited to the new residents of the Westfield's central new neighborhood, and the height of these buildings would be known and apparent to these residents when they make the decision to purchase or lease in the neighborhood. And so that's visual impact. Next is economic benefits. Lafferty asserts, and staff agrees, that the increased height limit would increase in, and I wrote this in while I was listening to the previous item, in the short conclusion is more expensive units. By creating additional square footage, providing for rooftop terrace or patio that has been very, very popular and commanded a price premium in these type of communities across the Wasatch Front. And lastly, the increased height permits 9 to 10 foot ceiling heights throughout the homes, a feature that's also been in great demand in the market, especially for homes such as these with smaller footprints. So generally, the economic impact of this change would be to increase the price point of these units and increase their marketability to the higher end of the market. While staff agrees with these statements and recognizes that there is this economic benefit, the direct economic benefit to the city, as I mentioned in the staff report, from property tax would be extremely small based on the incremental difference. But more importantly, I would argue that there's other values that merit discussion when considering the size and height of housing units, such as affordability, and that really comes back to the last item we talked about, which I didn't even think about that these were going to be after each other. But so a little of it is a rehash. Staff believes that there's a public benefit to providing smaller, attainable single-family homes for individuals or families that don't need or can't afford 3 to 4 bedrooms with the maximum square footage that can fit on a lot. We don't need every lot to be the most expensive house as possible. I have a neighbor that's a single older woman with a dog, and if she had a place where she didn't have to take care of the yard, even though, she likes having the dog run around, or I have another neighbor whose husband is a double amputee and they can't take care of their yard, but they've been in their house for 30 years and there's just no way in the current market that they can go find something that works better for them. So I feel that smaller and more affordable homes fill a demonstrated market need. And also I skipped it, that part of the intent of the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan was to provide a mix of housing types and price points. And that intent extends even to single-family attached and detached units. So townhomes, single-family homes, cottages. So again, affordability is a public benefit to have smaller, attainable single-family homes, and there is a market need for that. And so maximizing the size and the value of those homes has to be weighed against our desire to have a place where people that don't need 5 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms even can have an opportunity to live and have the same amenities that people with a quarter-acre lot have access to. So we have to weigh those, and that's probably my biggest concern on the negative, is that this just further decreases the price point diversity in the area. Another value to consider is one that we've brought up a lot tonight, is community character. And honestly, from a planner's perspective, it's one of the hardest things for us to grapple with because it can be so nebulous. It's very hard to define. And whenever I hear somebody say community character, we had such a great character, I want to pin them down and say, hey, will you complete this short 10-minute survey to tell me what exactly is community character to you? Because I wish I could pin it down better, because then we could quantify it and plan to it better. But when people say small town feel or community character, I kind of scratch my head, to whom, for what. So I've focused on more of the objective elements of that tonight. So forgive me if I don't make an attempt to ascertain what the generally accepted community character of the surrounding neighborhood is to a statistically significant level. I wish I could do that. So even if first, we really need to look at the Westfields community plan, and that it is a plan that's been in effect for 20 years, and all these fields that are being developed in the Westfields plan, or in the Westfields area, after somebody moves in, then the field next to you gets developed, are all in accordance with the plan that was adopted 20 years ago. The only change to that plan is actually the rezoning to allow the Smiths in, and this rezoning for the Westfield Central Neighborhood Plan. So even if the proposed homes aren't visible from existing homes or by people traveling the streets of the perimeter of the project, we really have to ask whether the new neighborhood reinforces or weakens the general character of the community. Will the residents of the new neighborhood experience a character that's consistent with that's valued by the existing community? And it raises the difficult question of defining community character. And again, I'm going to rely on visual character because it's the easiest to define. And the immediately surrounding neighborhood is generally characterized by two-story homes. Yet, in a slightly larger radius, there are found three-story apartment buildings, three-story mixed-use buildings, and large public buildings, including some of substantial height, such as the CRC. And while it's clear that the CRC is not adjacent to existing homes in the same way that the Westfield Central project is, the diversity of building forms in the area is important. It's also important to consider when discussing community character as the original intent of the Westfields community plan. The first element is that residential neighborhoods would be anchored by schools, parks, community greens, and would range from multi-family dwellings in and around the community core, which is this area, to low-density developments to the south and the north, like down towards 1600 South and up towards Hobble Creek. And again, the plan says that each neighborhood should be anchored by a school, church, park, or community green. Historically, neighborhoods included groupings of such facilities and derived a sense of identity from them. These facilities are important gathering places and a vital component of creating a neighborhood. And this is one area where we feel with the CRC, with a school, with a church, with a park, all kind of centralized in this area, that it does create a civic focus for the neighborhood. The plan also continues by stating that the Westfields community should create a community with a wide variety of housing types and density, and include the service and amenities that contribute to desirable, stable neighborhoods. The Westfields and Neighborhood Plan accomplishes these objectives and supports the intended community character. While the plan that's on the books for that neighborhood and the proposed amendments are different, definitely, from the immediately surrounding houses, an increase in height for these single-family attached units in limited locations does not appear to directly contradict the intended visual character that the Westfields community plan established for the overall Westfields community. So all of these values and interests have to be weighed to form a recommendation. First, I would contend that the original intent of the Westfield Central Neighborhood Plan is not compromised by the proposed amendment. And as stated previously, the original plan permitted 3.5-story dwellings, and the council ultimately adopted a limited height at 35 feet. Next, the visual impact of the proposed amendment to the views of existing residents would be minimal. It would be visible, but compared to somebody building a standard 2-story house next to you on the adjacent lot, it would be less than that. For consideration of economic benefits, it's good to look at what our overall Springville policy and legislative actions have shown us. We've generally been interested in maximizing the value and attractiveness of our housing stock. We're also interested in maximizing municipal revenue. So these interests together would support the conclusion that permitting the construction of larger, more valuable homes would be desirable, as it would increase housing value and property tax, resulting in increased municipal revenue. But as I mentioned before, the actual revenue increase would be marginal So those interests may not have considerable weight as we do this analysis. It's also evident that surrounding residents and property owners are interested in maximizing the value of their homes and in having high-value homes as neighbors, and the proposed amendment protects these interests. The key interest that's compromised by the proposed amendment is affordability, as it would permit the construction of larger, more expensive homes. And the proposed amendments align with the visual character of the community as described in the Westfields Community Plan as I read it. So this table summarizes these elements that we've analyzed tonight. On the negative column comes affordability. In the neutral column is community character, visual impact, and original intent. And on the positive is economic, although perhaps marginally. But there's one outstanding consideration that is really difficult to quantify, and that's the expectations of neighbors. And clearly, you can see that there's a lot of interest and expectations due to the, evident from the crowd tonight. Some members of the surrounding community feel that their expectations, based on the originally adopted plan, are not being met by the proposed amendments, and that's true. And this is where I really botched the staff report and made it sound like I was saying that whether or not you can see it, it doesn't really change the impact to you or your expectations. What I meant to say that is independent of other impacts, that a change to what was expected is in and of itself its own impact. And that's important, and that needs to be considered. Well, we can't necessarily measure it or say you're going to see 10 square feet of a house sticking above the roof of your neighbor, or it's going to do a certain thing to property values. It's still very important, and it's obviously important to the citizens that joined us tonight. So based on this analysis, it's our finding that the proposed amendments won't have a direct and quantifiable negative impact on the residents of the surrounding neighborhoods, yet staff and the city as a whole obviously value the weight of their expectations and value their input, and adhering to expectations is important in and of itself. We believe that some benefits will accrue to the future residents of the affected units, providing larger, more livable homes. But most importantly, staff feels that these interests and considerations, where they are somewhat subjective and are framed by different sets of values that different people hold about their neighborhoods, that these considerations and the resulting recommendation to the City Council are best weighed by the Planning Commission. So staff has not issued a recommended motion, leaving to the Planning Commission the selection of a motion from these four options. First would be to recommend approval, and I didn't put these in any specific order to bias the outcome. Or to recommend denial would be number 2. To continue the item would be number 3. And to make an alternate recommendation, as you did on the last item, as number 4. And that alternate recommendation can take any form related to the issue that we're considering tonight. So those are the 4 options that you have before you in terms of making a recommendation to the City Council. And that concludes my staff report. I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
I have a couple questions, if that's okay? Okay. So back in the slides, and it's in our report as well, we have the home type that was shown, which looks like it's a 3-story home. And we're also talking about a 3.5-story home.
Okay, stop me when I get there. This one?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
The colored picture.
Okay.
There we go. So what is the difference between this home type that we're seeing here and the proposed home type? And why does the proposed home type need the additional 10 feet of height versus this one, which they look like they're achieving the same?
So that's a little hard to see without them lined up. So this is a 3-story unit,
Right.
ground floor, second floor, third floor. This is a 3.5-story unit, ground floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, which is the half unit because it covers less than 50% of the fourth floor. So from a building code perspective and a zoning code perspective, that's what we consider technically, that's what we mean when we say 3.5 stories. We don't mean like an attic. We mean a occupiable space on that half story that is less than half of the footprint of the floor beneath it.
It's a fourth story, but it's smaller.
It's a fourth story, but it's smaller in footprint. So that's why these are your 3-story units, and these are your 3.5-story units.
Okay. And what we're achieving with that is additional living space as well as some sort of balcony.
Additional living space, in addition to additional outdoor living space.
Mm-hmm. And that other floor type, I think it says in here is about 2,000 square feet. Do you know what the 3.5 would be?
I can.
Like another 800, like the first
Yeah, that's
floor?
probably a best. I could pull up the site plan or the unit type drawings, but that's probably a question best left to the applicant because they can speak
Sure.
more authoritatively to what they're proposing.
That is true. You may not know the answer to this one. Do you know about what the height is of, like, the apartments that are by the Fourth West?
Village on 4th.
No, Fourth West railroad tracks. You have Center Street, you have the railroad tracks, and there's a section of apartments that are right at the end of a neighborhood by.
Oh,
the
in
train.
Devon Glen?
Yeah.
So those are 3 stories. I'm guessing they're probably, based on when they were built, 8 to 9, but closer to 8-foot heights. They're 3 stories with a gabled roof, so they're probably in the 30 to 35-foot range.
So we're talking about 10 feet higher than those.
Correct.
And adjacent to homes that are about the same size as
Those.
normal.
As those
Residential.
apartments that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
No, adjacent as in next to within this
Uh-huh.
project, correct. So by adjacent, I mean they're next to these units that are 3 stories or 35 feet.
Okay.
And the surrounding homes are 30 feet.
And where else in this plan are there about 30-foot height homes?
In this
Yeah,
plan,
Yeah, just in that part.
anything that is not, see now you're gonna challenge my memory. Any Muse home that is located on this eastern boundary can only be 2 stories.
Okay.
Any of the twin homes are only 2 stories. And the cottage court, which is a lot type that wasn't actually platted, I believe is 2 stories. But the majority, all those ones I listed off on the slide that were previously permitted to go to 3.5 stories are now 35 feet.
Okay.
So those cottages you see here
Mm-hmm.
are probably in the 35-foot range.
So most everything between that green belt and 950 West is about 35 feet, except for the ones that are proposed to go to 45 if we agree
Correct.
to that today.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Josh, I just wanted to reiterate, maybe make sure my question is correct. The issue tonight that we're going to vote, that you talked about, we had 4 different outcomes, but the issue we only voting on is the height issue.
Yes, is whether
There's no
to-
other issue. We can't vote on or make a recommendation to change the whole development or to change this or that. The only thing that we're asked to do tonight as a planning commission is to decide on approval or denial or continuation on the height.
Correct.
Of that's been recommended
The
today. and
request
that's
for the
it. That's
10-foot
our
height
only
amendment.
That's our only,
Yes.
for this item tonight, that's it.
The developer is vested in, and as everybody in the room knows, is almost ready to pave the project.
Right.
But density remains the same.
Yeah, the density remains the same. Unit counts don't change. That your decision is purely limited to yay, nay, or maybe something a little different on the 35 to 45 for these.
To clarify
specific
for
units.
everyone, yeah,
Right.
thank you.
No other actionable items
Correct.
that we can,
Pretty limited scope of
imagine.
scope of
limited.
decision
Yeah.
tonight.
okay. Are there any other questions for staff?
No.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Josh. Is the applicant here, and would the applicant like to address? Please come on up.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Rich Garchar, and I'm with Lafferty Communities. And I want everybody to understand that we're here to buy these 62 lots. We are not the developer of the lots, so we're kind of inheriting the plans that have already been approved. And with that, we hired WHA Architects. They're an architectural firm within 8 different states in the West that are very knowledgeable about these types of product. And they've designed what we believe to be really excellent homes. And we're trying to bring something really unique to Springville and make this the star of this whole development. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mark Rutherford from WHA, and he can kind of walk you through his thought process. He's the genius behind the plans, and he'll give you kind of his perspectives as to what he was thinking.
Thanks, Rich. Good evening, commissioners and residents. So I was going to have a little bit more of a presentation, but I think the hot button that staff is kind of hit tonight is the height limit, so I'll concentrate on that. But just to mention, that Lafferty tasked WHA coming into this master plan, and we are planners. We were not involved in this master planning, but we do quite a bit of land planning, developing the architecture for the land plan and following through on the master plan and setting up guidelines. So the master plan is in place. We were tasked by Lafferty Homes to come in here and work on these 62 lots that they are looking to purchase. And kind of working with those lot sizes and coming up with something that meets their program, a sellable product. And I think we were very excited about the opportunity of this, I'll say, an innovative urban type of master plan in a suburban setting. So I think there's a lot of innovative and just there are some challenges, but some of the things that I think are really unique about this is that it is providing a modern lifestyle home in a suburban setting. And a lot of people are attracted to that. A lot of people who want to move out of a metropolitan area, but yet they like the lifestyle of these modern type homes. And so with that in mind, that was our challenge to work with these lots. And I'd say the ones we're talking about, these 27 lots that, everything else works within the height limit. It's these 27 that we're really concentrating on about the height limit. And 19 of those are the loft homes. And those ones are your smallest lots, or their smallest lots within the master plan, as far as the loft homes are either 30 by 30, 900 square feet, or 30 by 35. And then, but this being a suburban setting, that type of a home, still, you need a 2-car garage. It's not, if you're developing this in an infill, in an urban setting, metropolitan area, there's mass transportation. Cities typically, for us, discourage us from having any parking in some of the homes because they want people to use mass transportation, which they're paying for, bikes, anything, scooters, anything other than that. But here, that's really not a choice. I mean, the car is how you're getting home and getting around the area. So with that said, each of these 19 homes, well, actually, all of these homes have 2-car garages. So that's, and a 2-car garage is minimum 20 by 20 on the ground floor for 2 cars. And then you have your front door entry, stairs going up, and so that eats up most of your lot. And so these are designed to live at the second floor as far as your living area, your kitchen, dining, living areas. And a deck, access to, a 6 to 7 foot by 12 foot outdoor deck. Bedrooms are at the 3rd level. And then are wanting to do to make this, again, just kind of innovative and very attractive. These are, more upscale homes. These are not what I'll say are affordable homes. These would be very expensive in a metropolitan area, less expensive out here, but there's a lot of qualities people are coming to Springville for, which would be the small town character, culture, safety, proximity to schools, recreation, and shopping, and those types of things. So with that smaller lot, to provide a rooftop deck with the opportunity for these expansive views around the site makes this really attractive, because those homes, as you can see with the site plan that staff has presented with where these are located within the interior lots of the site, without that, they really don't have any views. And with the limited footprint as far as the size of the lots, they really don't have any private outdoor open space at grade. Yes, they can go to the park, but they don't have it to go out there and entertain, barbecue, that type of thing. And so the thought process is on for those interior lots, smaller footprint, to provide an outdoor access at the roof that they can, have people come up there. That's large enough for them to entertain, enjoy just, living outdoor activities with their family, and take advantage of that. And I think just provide it to be a more attractive alternative for someone that wants to move into Springville with all the amenities that are offered with the master plan, and still have opportunity to also have some private outdoor space, which they wouldn't have in a metropolitan area, but they could here. They don't on these limited lots, but they do by having a roof deck. So I'd say that's really, I think, the hot button that staff is wanting us to touch on tonight. And I say that's really the gist of why we say, in order to provide the proper ceiling, interior heights, and having that opportunity for a roof deck. And that when we say, there's living space at that roof deck or that fourth level, it's typically a small mezzanine type of level. It's limited by code to a percentage of the floor below it. So it's a smaller element, but it provides someone that access to the outdoor deck, which of course is just at the roof level. And there, as staff mentioned, you may have some view corridors between the homes, the 10-foot setback between the homes where there are single-family detached. But for the most part, it's on the interior of the site. And in the rendering that was shown, the streetscape rendering, those homes, are probably the largest lots. They're typically 30 by 75. They're 3 stories. 2 out of those 3 floor plans live at grade. They're alley loaded, meaning vehicular access from the rear. And front doors are onto the street along with front porches. Open decks at the second floor. There's roof elements to step down to both 1-story, 2-story, and then one of the homes is a 2-story, the other ones are 3-story. So there's a mix of them. So you do have an undulation of scale, both back and forth and up and down along those streetscapes, which is the transition to the existing homes. And so I think that is the face that is presented to the public, and then within that it becomes a little bit more of an urban character. And I think the architecture represents a lot of traditional style elements that are relatable to most older, smaller communities, but it does get into an urban product once we get into the interior of the site. But that's, again, we were tasked coming into an approved master plan and trying to provide a product that and homes that are attractive to, I think, an emerging segment of the market, which is the younger buyer wanting to get back to the suburbs. They're tired of the city. Some of them are younger families wanting to raise kids, want to have proximity to school, want to have safety, and want the culture of a small town. And I think those are the buyers that, we're kind of designing to. And we do it a lot, in metropolitan areas. I think here is a really interesting and unique opportunity. And I think it really could be as an opportunity to have a real trendsetter and something that's going to, be attractive to a lot of cities that want to innovate. Any questions or comments?
Any questions for the applicant?
I do have one. If we didn't approve the height increase that you're requesting, what would you do with those particular units that you're requesting a height for?
Those
that additional
27
height?
units? Well, we'd work with, if there's any recommendations, we could work with that height limit. And they're already designed to work within that height limit. What we would do right now is just make sure there's appropriate ceiling heights and there's that access to the fourth level.
So you do have options to still do the product, but it would just be a little different than what you would like with the increased height. So the product wouldn't change itself.
No.
You'll just figure out a way to kind of lower the height to
If
meet
we didn't get
if we did not.
if we had to
approve
work
it.
with 35 feet,
Correct.
oh, that roof deck would be gone.
So you would change that product
Oh,
to
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
different product. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
It would go back to the original
To-
product.
to the original.
That's what he's saying.
it would go to a 3-story with no roof access.
Okay.
And with that in mind, like as I mentioned, it kind of lowers the value of those loft homes and those townhomes.
And also make it more affordable. Just another way to say it. I'm just thinking.
Possibly it could, yeah, it would make it more affordable without having to do the roof deck.
Okay.
But then there's a lack of, as I said, private open space, really, because the lots at 30 by 30, 30 by, I mean, that's basically a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
A little bit more than that. And you're putting a home like this on there, so,
I understand. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
So the total square foot of this type of home that you're proposing would be about what?
Generally on the lofts, they're 1,800 square feet to about a little over 2,000 square feet. And I think probably at that, the blue ones there, the Plan 2 on the townhomes, I think that's around 2,200 square feet.
So the taller homes aren't significantly more square footage.
Oh, no, no, no. No, they're smaller lots. They're tiny. It's vertical because the lots are so small, and that's why you don't have the, like I say, at grade private open space. Because with a 30 by 30 lot, a garage that's at least 21 by 21 to the outside walls, plus your front door, plus your stairs, there's nothing left.
High roofs.
Yep.
I mean, higher ceilings.
Which I like. Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to move to our public hearing. We'll take a vote on the public hearing, and then I will go over the instructions for the public hearing. Do we have a motion for the public hearing?
Move to enter into a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so looking around, we've got close to 50 people in here. So there are a few things that we're going to do in order make this go a little bit smoother and to try and maximize participation. First is that we are going to have a timer. You will be limited to 2 minutes for your public comment, again, stating your name and your address for the record. We'd also ask that if your comment is substantially the same or in agreement with other comments, if you can just raise your hand after a comment to show agreement rather than coming to the microphone to make the same comment, that'll maximize other people being able to come to the microphone and make a diversity of comments. So we'd ask for you to do that, and please maintain the decorum of the meeting. Be respectful of everybody around you who is trying to make a comment so that we can hear, we can understand by not calling out, not booing or cheering, just kind of keep things to where we can have a good discussion back and forth. And then when we are concluded with the public hearing and we've moved back to the commission discussion, we need you to respect that that is now our opportunity to discuss among ourselves, and we can't engage back and forth because the public comment period will have closed at that point. So that being said, I'd like to welcome you to please come make your comments.
Hi, my name is Rachel Brager. I am at 1176 West, 1050 South. And I am not a public speaker. I am not going to be gentle, probably. I am just going to put my thoughts out there, and they are a little bit jumbled. But I do think the city council was correct the first time at keeping it to a maximum height of 35 feet. I do not believe we need anything taller in that area. I honestly don't know how this community got passed. I think it is going to be completely, it's going to be weird. It's going to look so weird in that community, in addition to the tiny streets that they have in there. I rode my bike through there, and I didn't even feel like I had enough room to ride my bike through there. So imagining all of the people that are going to live there and all the cars, it's just going to be insane to me. But I also wanted to bring up that we are basing, I think they're trying to get us to base decisions off of people that are going to move here, but I think we need to also keep in mind the people that already live here and listen to their concerns. I don't think anyone in here wants a taller building, and I don't think anyone cares about the profit that they stand to make from building a taller building. I don't think anyone in here cares except them. And what else was I going to say? Anyway, I will leave it at that, but I really feel like we need to decide no on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lincoln Brown. I live at 677 South, 950 West. I can see the construction from my office, actually. I can watch it go along. I will say this, that at present, 950 West is quickly turning into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. These cars whip up and down, left and right. I've even told the police about it. I was even sideswiped right in front of my own house. Now, what I can see here is this increase, I know a lot of us are already in the works, is only going to put more pressure on that road. It's already going to put more pressure on the people that live in this area. It is going to be a disruption of the view shed. I don't care what they say. I mean, it's great they're going to have party roofs. When they move in, the first winter in Utah is probably going to talk them out of that. We used to live in Springville. We built a house in Saratoga Springs. I don't know if you've been to Saratoga Springs, but it's a god-awful mess. They have took 2,000 pounds of stuff and tried to cram it into a 500-pound bag. It is congested. It is dangerous. It is overbuilt. And I just want to say this. I love this town. We moved back to this town on purpose. You have a great city here. Please don't screw it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Ashton, 947 South, 875 West. My first question is, does any of you actually know what the height of the CRC building is?
I don't think.
Anybody? 51. There we go, bingo. Height of the CRC building is 51 feet. That is to the tallest point of that building. 45 accommodations for a 45-foot roof up to the midpoint of the eaves is going to reach almost as tall as a CRC building. So just to put that into perspective, we are looking at a building or 27, 28 buildings.
Please address the commission.
We're looking at buildings that are 28 buildings that are the height of the CRC building. That is a big building. And we oftentimes throw around 35, 45 feet without the perspective of what that actually means. That is a huge building. It's not something small, it's massive. We look at some of the apartment complexes that are around in Pleasant Grove, Springville, Provo, that I lived in when I was going to school, and those buildings were 3-story apartment buildings. I rarely ran into any 4 stories except for maybe the one that replaced the old Reams Shell building. These are not small buildings. On top of that, the grading that we already have in that area, they're graded 10 feet above street level. From looking out, if you're standing there, you're looking at that grading, it's probably not 10, it's probably closer to 5 feet above grade of street level. So we're already graded down in where we're living in the surrounding communities to looking up to a building that now is going to exceed 50 feet above our own homes. My house is 21 feet. That's the height of my 2-story home. We're adding another house on top of that and then some. These are massive buildings. This isn't something that belongs in a neighborhood community. This isn't something, we're not an urban area. There's a dichotomy between here that we're conflating what the meaning between two things is. We are not an urban area, and as somebody who is, I don't want to say younger anymore because I'm starting to feel old, but I feel like I'm significantly younger than a large population of people who own homes, and that is not what my wife and I, or any of my friends, or anybody in my age group that I associate with is looking for, is a home with no yard. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest goals is everybody talking to each other about how we want a home with a yard where we can have dogs, we can have a neighborhood community where we can have people in our backyard to have barbecues. We want to be able to raise kids in a neighborhood that's quiet. We know our neighbors. We know who people are. And building these huge, massive homes that not only are an eyesore to the community, but don't represent what our community character is to begin with, and is crazy. Not only that, having rooftop accommodations, I don't know if anybody's familiar with how sound travels, but when you don't have anything to isolate sound, such as buildings, trees, grass, and areas that have softening, such as biological debris like shrubs, yards, sound travels really easily. And having people on rooftops is going to be a problem. I can already see it. I mean, I've lived in areas where we have outdoor patios and things, and it's noisy, and noise complaints are going to happen, especially if you have people on top of roofs playing music. And we're living across the street from this. This isn't 500, 2,000 feet away. This is 150 feet away from our homes. This is 100 feet away from our homes.
Your time is up.
Time is up.
Okay, anyways, we need to accommodate the people who actually live here and care. It's clear that we don't care for 45-foot ceilings.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lanny Norris. I live at 926 South, 875 West. I will be directly south of this development. One of the issues that I have is parking, because I already know we are going to get a ton of cars parked on our street. My husband and I are probably one of the older families living on our street. We have a ton of young children on our street, and I love to see them play there, and that won't happen when all those cars from that development park there on our street. That I know that is going to happen. Also, I think there's been a lot of talk about you guys are just the recommending board, and I appreciate your service. You're a volunteer. I appreciate you coming out here. But I feel like you do get the ball rolling. I feel like the ball got rolling with this initial development. We were kind of screwed over as neighbors. We don't want to be screwed over again. And I just hope you look out when you had mentioned that railroad, the apartments by the railroad, and you asked how tall those were. And he said 3 feet. Imagine standing in your neighborhood and looking at another building on top of that. And that's what you're living in. This should not have been developed here. When I built my house, I really wanted a 3rd-car garage. And I thought I could have one because other people in the neighborhood did. But the city council, I don't know if it was the city council, but the developers told me, sorry, your lot, you can't have a 3rd-car garage. I have plenty of room for a 3rd-car garage, and I was told no. So sometimes we don't always get what we want. And I feel bad for the developers. They came in, they have this awesome plan. I'm sure it's beautiful, but it doesn't belong there, and they need to stick with the original height limit of the 35 feet.
I'm Jordan Tripp, 843 West, 1450 South. I am your old crossing guard at Meadowbrook, and I will tell you, it was a nightmare. You sent me to the hospital in panic attacks because of that 950 West road. I had parents running me over shiftly. I can't even say daily, every shift. And you're going to put these babies in these monsters' hands with throwing as many people as you can in that tiny little community. You didn't give us a 5-acre park. You gave us a strip of land for those people to play on, not for us. We don't get that. They're putting the Picasso of disgusting design in the Van Gogh of Art City. It does not match the neighborhood. You drive through the neighborhood, you don't match it. Are you going to red curb the streets so we don't have additional parking? What is an apartment? It's like a 1.5 car per apartment. We have houses in my neighborhood that have 8, 9, 10 cars parking on the street. What are you going to do with these houses that have 3 levels that's not mid-income? This is high-income living. So you're going to have a family move in with all their friends because they cannot afford these homes. to rent, to buy, to nothing. And personally, I'm sick of it. I wanted to work for the city, for the police, and help these babies at my kids' schools. And I couldn't do that because of what was being built across the street. You may have changed that crosswalk. It did a dent because now you have the four-way crosswalk. I know you're watching that. I know you see all of the additional housing where there's houses for rent for $3,300. A house of $3,300. Now you expect these high-density housing that are going to loom over us and be monstrosities. I moved from Orem because I wanted country living, not metro, like a city. I don't want this city. Keep us small. Keep us in a community, not at our throats like this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Seiler. I own the house 683 South, 800 West, and 745 West, 850 South. The reason I am here is, first off, I was never informed. From the get-go, we have 2 houses down there, and I never got informed. Secondly, I see this being a $20 million loss for our property values because of what you have already approved. And so, first off, the houses right here on 750, if you want to open it up, are all backing up to these homes that are right next to these townhomes. It's not what you said was the expectations, right? Which the expectations were that this would be, that it would be like a normal single-family home, which should have a 25-foot setback. Those setbacks are 6 feet. You're practically sitting on the lot line. We've seen the irrigation lines going right on the lot line there, which could cause problems. If I put a fence in, they're going to have to tear my fence to get it out. Now, here's the deal. Any one of those people on that road who want to sell, they got a nuisance, an environmental obsolescence, right? Any buyer coming in is not going to buy that house. Those houses are probably worth $650,000 to $700,000 right now. A buyer coming in is going to look at that and go, why am I going to pay full price for this house where someone's sitting on my lot line? They are not. It's going to cause those houses to depreciate. In normal circumstances, we ran the numbers. If I look over the El Dorado neighborhood, in general, they're about 10% less than other neighborhoods because of the environmental obsolescence of the railroad. We are creating this environmental obsolescence and decreasing the value by 10%. So in these homes themselves, what ends up happening is those houses may sell for 10% less. The ones coming out across the street, which is what I own in both directions, right? I'm going to get a penalty myself because when the appraisers come in and appraise those houses, they're going to look, hey, that house sold for 70 grand less. Why are you expecting a market rate? They don't care. They're off in New York City or somewhere, right? And so in essence, in general, if we go and look at this ripple appraisal effect across all the homes that we have, it comes to about a $21 million loss in property value. And so what I propose, and I know this has nothing to do with it, but hey, this is all about money, right? We're doing this so we can get more money for our units. But in essence, we're losing money because we're allowing it. And is there a way to make it so we both win? And so can we make it so that, in essence, those houses are not creating an environmental obsolescence for the homes that they're backing up to? So my proposal is that, you know, we've already run the roads and everything. Can we make them one-story houses? Make them affordable units. There's a lot of people who need one-story main living houses anyway who don't even have that. We have a need for that in this community. We also have a need for doing what we're doing here. I'm not going to say that it's not needed. There is a need for a lot of housing. We're in a housing shortage, right? But can we make it so that we're not creating an environmental obsolescence for those who already exist?
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Hansen. I live at 982 South, 825 West. I met my wife at the Springville Art Museum, and we had our wedding reception there. And now we live in Springville, and we like it here. I got 5 points that I quickly want to make. First, the existing law was a hard-fought compromise between the community and the old developers. And after it's been sold, I think that a change in our amendment would represent a betrayal of that process that we went through. I think most people here feel that we lost that compromise in the first place, and further loss would be even worse. Besides that, the staff found that there was no direct or quantifiable impact given this new amendment. I think that's an indictment on the staff. The quantity is represented in feet, and the direct impact is to the surrounding area. I think those two terms are easy to understand, and there is a direct and quantifiable impact. Besides that, this was a public hearing, and I'm sad that the public didn't get a chance to say more. We waited hours to say things and listen to things that seemed off the wall to us, and we're here to ask you to defend our interests. We can't constantly police the city government. It's not our job to. You're our representatives, and we hope that you represent our own interests and recommend to the committee, to the city council, what we would like you to. We need your help with that. We can't do it all the time, and we're grateful for your service, but that's what it seems like you ought to do to me. Thanks.
Marshall Davis, currently living at 683 South, 800 West. We live adjacent to this development. And I have a few things I want to say. Initially, when we first moved into where we are currently living, the thing that drew us most to the property is that when we came to see it, is there was a herd of children moving around the neighborhood, and they grabbed our kids with them and just took them around. And it was this great sense of community. And specifically this last summer, it's been incredibly heartbreaking for me as a father to watch that stopped, because construction has been driving traffic through the neighborhoods, and the people that speed, they don't respect the speed limits, and kids aren't safe in our streets anymore. The crossing guard mentioned earlier how dangerous it is there, and it's only going to get worse. And that's really heartbreaking for me, because we have a special thing in Springville, which is the community, and it feels like almost like family, and I feel like it's slowly dissipating. We keep pushing this idea of urban in a small town, and they completely contradict each other. Urban is a city. Take your stuff, put it in the city. This is a small town. They should be homes. They complain that their tenants want to be able to see, they want to be outside, so we need this fourth floor so we can see the sights. Well, give them yards. Get rid of this high density crap and give them yards. I think it's really important that you consider the people that are already here. They want to take away our views and our ability to see things so they can sell it for a higher price to other people, and that's not okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Rebecca Millard, and this is Harrison. So hopefully we'll make it through this without crying.
He's done great.
Okay. I live at 997 West, 800 South, and acknowledging that a lot has happened before this, and like you said, this is about just the height requirement. I wanted to address something, and I'm just going to read it because I want to be respectful of time and I don't want to ramble. So I'm sure you guys remember at the meeting when a lot of us showed up when we first kind of heard about this development. There was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of upset within the community. There was a group of us that were trying hard to educate the community, help get them involved, to try to make the best that we could out of the situation. This group of us tried hard to bridge the citizens and the developer at the time to find the best solutions, and we felt like we came to as good of an agreement as we could in the situation, because we couldn't not have the development. However, with the changes of the developers, we're fighting again for our community, and in the report, like we talked about, it says that the impact is neutral to the surrounding community. I completely disagree with that. I know all of my neighbors disagree with that. This development has brought a significant amount of distrust and frustration for the citizens, between the citizens and the city government. And we've all acknowledged that. Right now I do want to say, Josh, thanks for being so helpful and working through everything. Oh, I thought that was my time. But we were really working to try to bridge that. Allowing this proposal to be approved would be a significant step backwards, and honestly kind of a slap in the face to the community, in saying that ultimately this is not what you agreed on, and we hear your concerns, but we just don't really care. So I just am asking you, please don't increase the height, because that's just another frustration for the community members, and just another kind of sign or verification or validation of what they already feel, which is they don't feel heard. So
thank you.
Thank you.
This is, Trevor Astle. I'm at 978 West, 950 South. I have one question pretty much for the developer. On this extra 10 feet they're requesting, is there any way that that could be subletted or used as a bedroom of any sort? Could someone live on that upper piece other than the decking?
That's more of a question of whether or not our code allows for
Well,
it to happen. That would be a question of.
Code, regardless, code, go drive down 1750 and you'll see code broken all day long because we planned enough parking. So code is great, but if we can put another person in another location in that house that code or not, we're not enforcing 750. When are we going to go into someone's house and say, hey, you got someone up here, you can't have them? We can't get the cars off of 1750 South. Like, it's 3 blocks worth of cars. So I'm just, if there's any way that people, because of the cost of houses, and Josh mentioned on what he thinks the price is worth, people are going to pack what they can pack to get what they can out of it. So I can totally see, we get 3 kids in a 4-bedroom house. Let's make the top one a 5th one. No one's going to come into my house and say, hey, you're living up there. We can't get the cars off of 750. So any reasons we can prevent them from packing more people into a smaller place, let's just keep it down. So I'm at 35 feet, and I agree with the last one. You guys, this has been a huge distrust, not just on your guys' part, as a whole. The distrust in that area for the city right now is really low. And I don't know, I'm with the crossing guard as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Passmore, 950 South Spring Canyon Way, and I love having a regular street address. I can't find anything in this state. 950 East and 540, it's crazy. I feel really bad for you because I don't think this is one of your happier times. I'm sure, but it probably wasn't, you didn't imagine this. Basically, you got a pig in a poke. And it's interesting, I don't know what happened to approve this thing, but the architect said, what we're getting to do here, folks, is move a metropolitan development into the suburbs. Now, doesn't that tell you that this does not fit with the character of Springville? And to increase that height, I guarantee you the noise is going to be terrible. If I were a gambling person, I'd bet somebody that in 2 or 3 years, they're going to be rentals. And what happens when you have rentals? Well, you got a bunch of college kids or whatever, they're going to have parties up there. It's going to be, stuff is going to be coming down off those rooftops. Already my neighbors, and I don't have one car, it's just me. But I have neighbors who also have the 3rd garage and the 2. I have 3-car garage. And my neighbors do too. And they park their cars on the street. Now, you're going to have these folks, they're going to put all their storage stuff in the garages. Maybe it'll be a play area for the kids because it's at the ground level. But the cars are going to be on the street. And that is going to be a dangerous situation, and it's going to be a safety problem, and it's going to spread out. I guarantee it. So I think that's what I wanted to say. You're going to have noise, you're going to have parking issues, and they're going to be rentals. I guarantee you they will be rentals. Families won't want those kind of houses.
Hi, my name's Ashley Chambers. I live at 985 South, 950 West. My biggest concerns were, again, adding square living space. I know it's not code, but in the neighborhoods, we have seen multiple families in areas, and whether it's code or not, more people in. But I also live directly south of there, and there are little areas that they said that you'll be able to see through areas. It already grades down in that area, so we're already at a lower level than the base of where it is right there. It's giving them private space with lots of loud noises, but they'll be looking directly into my backyard, which is my private space, which is not going to be private anymore.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Connor Whitney, and I live at 738 South 750 West Springville. I'm 13, and growing up, I went to Meadowbrook Elementary School, a school to the left of this site, and when I went to middle school, I went to Spring Canyon to the right of it. And growing up, I knew one thing, that there was a lot of cars, a lot of buses, and sometimes I felt even at danger, even with a lot of crossing guards and things like that. With them increasing the height of the houses, I know that more people will likely move into there, and I know if that means that more cars and more buses and so many more people going to schools. And when that happens, I just feel like, and I agree with everybody else, it'll just become so much more unsafe. And like everybody else has said as well, that there'll be so many more cars parked on the sides, and it will just become so hard to pass through there. That's basically all I have to say.
Good job, Connor. Thank you.
My name's Alan Sumnall. I moved here 2 years ago, 955 West, 800 South, so right straight across the street from where this is going in. I do have a question. When will the 27 structures be built that you're asking for? What phase are they being built in? Right, but are the other houses being built first? So how many of the 27 are going to be built initially? 16. Okay. I was just going to say pretty much everyone that lives in this neighborhood is against it. If it was your neighborhood, do any of you live in that neighborhood?
I do not.
Okay. I'm going to speak for proxy for the 40 people the 40 homes that are going to also move in, that they don't want it either. If I were to spend all that money to buy a cottage with my back door, I mean, I'm going to be looking at a straight flat surface right behind me. Holy shit! I mean, sorry. Is that really going to increase your home values for the whole project?
Please address the commission with your
They're going to get more money for the 27 units. But my gosh, it seems to me like it's not necessarily the best decision, even from a developer standpoint, I would say you talked about being innovative, and I would say figure out a way to get that rooftop terrace without, have a walk-up stairway to get to get there or something. Be innovative. But everyone in the neighborhood and the bulk of the people that are going to buy the non-27 homes, I can tell you right now, are going to be against it. It seems like a fairly simple decision for you guys to make tonight. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Chad Tripp, 843 West, 1450 South. I'm the ex-crossing guard's husband. So I kind of lived through that whole process of the crossing guard experience. I wanted to kind of touch on that, but mostly, how many of you were here in the initial planning of this development?
Probably half of us.
Half of you. Okay, do you realize that the biggest issue, I think the biggest takeaway, and these gentlemen don't understand, is how blindsided every one of us were in this process. And when it came down to it, we had hours to petition this. We happened to have a select few that were able to get their petition signed during the day when all the rest of us were at work. And then Mr. Simpson, is he here?
Nope.
Okay, he's long gone. He's done his part. He got what he wanted and he's moved on. We're all still here. So just taking off from that point there, we were blindsided by that, and here we go again. We're coming up to another obstacle. These gentlemen don't understand the history of what's going on over here. But just to touch really quick on why I'm up here, safety. I live every day in safety. My line of work revolves around safety. I have children that attend both the elementary school and the middle school. Right now, they bus because the railroad tracks are active. As soon as those become decommissioned, you're going to have hundreds of little feet going up 950. And like the individual, I don't know who it was, had mentioned that that's a raceway. So let me just quickly, I've got a picture of a post as of recent that said, how do we get a crossing guard at 950 West and 900 South, down the road from Meadowbrook? There are so many kids that cross here. Today I watched 3 kids almost get hit by a car. 3. In a matter of an AM walk to school. Okay? It is very needed, and every parent I talk to would sign a petition. Okay? I know my time is up. But we've sat here for over 2 hours and listened to this whole proposal. So I want to just reiterate, again, your children may or may not go to these schools, but if you go and spend a few minutes on 950 West right now, I challenge every one of you. Go park on 950 and see what the new McDonald's is going to bring to that street. See what the credit unions and any other establishments that are going in there. We have high-density housing units that was told to us that was being developed and brought to this city for the mere fact to make it affordable for those that can't afford it. And here we are, you can't afford it. Josh himself. You can't afford it. You've said that. I'm not calling you out, But you see what I'm saying? We're getting trapped into this whole process. It's a revolving door of us continuing to come up here and defending our community. How many of us have been in this room and been up to this podium? I don't want to be here tonight. I have better things to do. And guess what? That all the housings that are all around this development, every single one of them, the middle school, the elementary school wasn't here, Smith's wasn't here, none of this was here. How many of us did you see rolling up to this podium to dispute what's going on? Why? Because we understand that we need growth. We understand that housing is going to come in. These properties are going to get eaten up and purchased and developed. But the problem we're running into is what is going in here is not conducive to what is there, right? All these 300 homes that have been built since we've lived here or more, I didn't have a problem with. We have to accept change. We have to accept that. But there's a good change and there's bad. And this is bad. 35 feet's too much. Forget about the extra 10 feet. 35 feet's too high for right here, especially at an elementary school. Go to 950. Check it out. Even the cops are doing undercover stings right now. Yeah. Even the cops are doing undercover binoculars, watching people roll through stop signs on 950, right where this is going in. So take note of that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Burgeon. I live at 954 West, 950 South, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear our concerns. I think one reason that this feels so important and so emotional is that so many of us specifically chose to live in this area. Like, for us personally, we were like, we love Springville so much. I feel like I didn't want to live in Utah. Like, after graduating college, we were like, let's move. And then we found Springville, and we're like, wow, there's just something about it. I feel so at home here. I love it so much. And when we were looking for a house, we just loved this area so much and wanted to find a house, and just felt so lucky that we were able to. And it's just been really hard and really sad to see this happen and have it change the feel and the experience that we've been having. We've only lived in this neighborhood for 5 years, but wow, has everything changed within 5 years. So I think that's one reason that we're all feeling so emotional and so sad and upset. It was just an intentional move for a lot of us. We're like, this is the place for us. And so it's really hard to see it change. But one thing I just wanted to mention that hasn't been mentioned yet is if the main benefit of adding 10 additional feet is to have that outdoor space for entertaining or just hanging out, I think that sounds really fun, honestly. It sounds beautiful. I appreciate that they want to create a nice look. I think one of the concerns that we had was that it maybe would be like kind of run down, and I honestly am still concerned that it could become that, but I do appreciate that idea. However, if the main benefit is having outdoor living space, we live in Utah, and I just imagine sitting on top of of a house in the summer, it's just so hot. Like, I don't think it would be very fun. And then we get like 2 seconds of fall, as we can see today. It's like, oh, here we go. Like, it's such a short phase that we really have that time that you could sit on top of a building and feel comfortable, that I don't see it meeting the benefit, basically. And so with the seasons as they are here, I just feel like adding this 10 feet for the outdoor experience, I just don't think it will add up to being worth it. Is my time up? Yep. Okay. Just one quick ending phrase, I guess. When they were saying urban character, I was just like, no, that is the absolute last word that I ever want to describe Springville. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Richard Case, 906 South, 750 West. Your rooftop view is going to block my view of Mount Timpanogos, of Provo Peaks, of Spring Creek Canyon, and start to invade my view of Hobble Creek Canyon. Do I care about your rooftop? No, I don't. What I do care about is the aesthetics of that community. Josh, you want to know what community is? Your little 10-minute survey, there it is, right there. These people don't want this. We don't want this. Your roadways are 29 feet wide. You put an 8-foot parking strip on each side of that. That gives you a 13-foot pathway to drive. I build roads for a living. I built for South. I know what it takes. You're gonna cram all of that into a 29-foot road? Not happening. You're gonna force all of that traffic onto a 42-foot road, our roads, and now all of those kids that live in that neighborhood are in jeopardy. Your rooftop view, you can have it. I don't want it.
Hi, Jared Norris. I live at 926 South, 875 West. Obviously, it's a travesty that we're even at this point. I think if we had been informed and the city had done their due diligence in letting us know that they were changing the zone and all that stuff, that we wouldn't even be here. So it's just a travesty that we're here, but we are, unfortunately, here. Obviously, the task at your hand is to absolutely vote no, to not move this onto the city council, to increase the height of these, and I ask that you please do that. I guess the other thing, and this would be like a long shot Hail Mary type of thing, if we could go back in time, right, and somehow switch it back to single family homes, right? I know that's not, that might have something to do with the developer. I think the developer and the builders could be heroes if they decided to go, you know what, we've heard the community. Yeah, we might take a little bit of a loss. We're not going to get the huge profits and however much these homes are going to be, but it's the right thing to do. And so we are going to change the plans a little bit and put single family homes in there so they can have space to have their kids and they don't have to go up on the rooftop. I mean, that would just be an amazing if the developers were to, I know money, drives everything, but just to step back and look at the bigger perspective, it's not everything, right? And it shouldn't be in this life, and this life is short, and it is a travesty. I live right next to it, and it doesn't fit the landscape, it doesn't fit the community. I'm going to be looking at square buildings that are blocking my mountain view and all the safety. I agree with everything else, but just implore you to vote no or not to move this on, and maybe the developers to just drastically change this and maybe even agree to let the city come back and re-vote to rezone this back to single family homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Cindy Gold. I live 969 South, 875 West, and I know you've heard it all, but I am actually here. I was working all day, and then my son, 4 years old, he's like, Mom, where are you going? And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to a city council meeting. He's like, what's that? And I told him, I was like, well, they're going to put these giant buildings right here. And then he looks at me and he goes, so I'm not going to see the mountains anymore? So I didn't know about this whole planning until just recently. But I don't know, think of the little ones, think of the people that have moved here to build their homes, to build their lives. We're here now, so let's just vote no.
My name is Yevi James, and I apologize. This is my first city council, so I was the one saying yes, yes. Forgive me. I didn't know how it's done here, so I'm from a different place. But we've been here for a while, and I can relate to so many things that people said, right? That's why we built our home here, because we love this community and how small it is. I want to put things a little more in perspective for you, so especially because you don't live here. So look at the left of the lot of the Westfield, whatever that development. That's there's a school and the Meadow Walk community. That's my community. So I just counted the homes. There's 37 homes, and it's about half of the size of Westfield. So if I were to double it, so 37 plus 37, 74. So now, how many homes will you putting there? So 74 homes. That is it 300, 250? How many?
196.
196? That's not what I was told. Is that right? 196? Oh, I see. So who knows the number? The reason I want you to, that's important because I drive there, I walk there, and I want to tell you about these kids. They don't have patience. So if some kids walk on, if they're not riding bikes, they're walking on the sidewalk. The kids with bikes go on the road. They're going on the road. Do you have kids? Do you have grandkids? How? You said half of you voted for this. How? How? If one of those kids gets hurt, or dies, it's on you. How can you have voted for that? Just go. It's like people said, go and actually look at it. If you look at it, you will see that just doesn't, it should not be there. It just has no place to be there, that development, that is just so wrong. And I see you, for most comments that were said, you've been smiling. And I want to cry. I said that the whole time I see you smile, I wanted to cry. Please come and look at those kids after school. I will tell you, it's 2:45 on Mondays, and then 3:30 on other days. Okay, come when our kids are going home. I have 3 in elementary school. Come and look. You might change your mind, and maybe you'll change your mind too.
Hi, I'm not great at speaking. I'm Peggy. I live at 856 South, 750 West. My home is adjacent to one of those 6-foot boundaries. If I would have known this community was coming in, I wouldn't have picked this place. I'm unhappy with the closeness, and I'm happy to call the city and say, what can I do with my yard and how many parameters? And they're saying you have to do this and you have to do that, but you can apply for a variance. That doesn't make me happy. And as unhappy as I am about that, I even feel more unhappy about the people that are buying those homes. They get no yard space, they get no parking. They will be parking in front of my house, and he's worried about their views, putting rooftops on so that they can have great views. I lost my views. I lost my privacy. You put those patios in, and the neighbors around them are going to lose their privacy. I lost mine. Please don't let that happen to them.
My name is Jennifer Frampton. I live on 980 South, 875 West. You've heard 875 West 5 times tonight. 5 of the 10 homes on that road are here. I know that you guys don't live down there, but you're Springville citizens, so you are one of us. And I hope that when you sit here that your hearts kind of sting as you hear all the emotion and frustration that all of us have in regards to this development. I think that you guys are on the same page with us. I know that you can't tell us or show us how you feel, but you know that this was wrong and that this should never happen in the first place. And I think if we could have gone back, you would have not let that happen. And so we probably can't change it, but I hope that we can be in one moving forward and vote no with what we can vote no on, and that you'll listen and respect us and respect our feelings and our emotions in regards to our kids and our families and the safety of our kids, and that we can vote no on this. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Tyler Patching. I'm at 848 South 750 West. Peggy's my neighbor. When you changed the zoning here, you created an unmitigated disaster. And I don't know if there's any way back. I mean, they're putting utilities in the PUE, which should have been in the PUE. They're putting them in the backs of these properties. And like somebody else said, if they need to get to that water line, they're going to have to go through my property to get it. Is there easement? This is a problem. And I'm going to have a 35-foot shear wall 6 foot back from my rear of my property. Not what I intended when I moved here. And it's going to destroy the property value. So I appreciate it. Maybe you can rezone the whole area and we can all tear our houses down and build 3 properties on our own property.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Logan Millsap. I live at 133 South 880 East, and I've lived in Springville most of my life. Like many of you, I've seen it change quite a bit. I know that for many residents, that small town feel, that community character, it would not include most of the people here tonight. Many of our homes stand on the farmland that many of you guys maybe grew up with if you've lived here most of your lives. But I'm glad that you are all here. I'm glad to know that I have so many neighbors that care so much about this city and so much about their neighborhood. I know that the people who buy these homes matter to this conversation too. They are or will be Springvillans too. They care or will care about this community and about this neighborhood as much as we do. They are every bit as passionate about this neighborhood and the quality of their homes as we are, but they can't speak for themselves tonight. They're at a disadvantage simply because we got here first. Whether this height adjustment results in more profit for a builder, that doesn't matter too much to me, honestly. I know that somebody is going to buy these homes, even if they're a little bit more, and I want them to have a nice home. In my opinion, and I know a lot of the people, probably most of the people back here disagree with me tonight, but adding 10 feet to these specific homes will not really end up making much of a difference to the existing neighbors. But it will make a really big difference for the new neighbors who live in these homes. And if we could fast forward a couple years and have this same meeting, I think that we would have just as many people in this room arguing for this height adjustment. Like I said, I know many people will disagree with me, and that's all right. I'd also like to note that many of the comments tonight, perhaps even most of the comments, have been about density or parking or traffic or crosswalks or lot sizes or housing types or different lots that aren't even under question here tonight. And I don't want to be dismissive of those comments, but it does seem to me that some of the frustration and objection expressed here tonight is not directly related to the petitioner's request and the decision that you will make here tonight. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you all for being passionate. I know we disagree, but thank you. In Springville is
My name is.
Please respect the decorum of the meeting and the opinions of all in this meeting. That's the important part of being able to have a community as free as ours, is that we all get to have our opinions, and he is just as entitled to his. Please respect each other. Thank you.
My name's Adam Brager, and I live at 1176 West, 1050 South. And one thing I've learned in life is that closing arguments matter. So I was going to sit there silently, but I'm going to say something. I watched Sesame Street growing up, and I don't know if you can hear me, but there was this special part of the show where they said one of these things is not like the other. And it was trying to pick it out was sometimes difficult, but this one, not so hard. Cause and effect is a thing. I know the previous gentleman had mentioned parking was an issue and density and safety for kids and all that. there's a cause and there's an effect and there's a correlation to things, and more people will make more cars, and small streets that I just rode on my bicycle today, those are real tight little narrow streets in there. It all is going to impact the quality of our life living directly in these neighborhoods with all my friends and neighbors. Anyway, so I would hope maybe we could not go that direction any more than we already have. That's a possibility. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments?
Crystal Middle, 982 South, 825 West. I just wanted to say that I know that unfortunately there's a lot of things that are not being voted on today that are being brought up. And that's because, like other people have said, because we feel so passionate and so betrayed by everything, and we were already upset. And so just to push it even further by increasing that height that we'll see every day. Like you say, there will be little pockets, but if something's higher than you, you're gonna see it. Unless, like, if you're even a little bit away, that's how it works. And more importantly, they're gonna see us, and they're gonna see that school. And they're gonna see all the kids crossing the sidewalk and all the kids that are supposed to be in the safety of their own backyards. So I just wanna say that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? And please approach the microphone. All comments that are made are part of the public record, and they're only picked up if they're at the microphone.
So for the developer, I have a question. As far as the units go, are those, and I asked this because I've lived in Springville where units very similar to this went up across the street from where I lived, and they were work-live units. And my question is, are these units that you're developing, are they going to be sold to the public, or do you already have interest groups who are purchasing bulk of these for rentals? Because what happened when these ones went up is, even though they were slated to be sold to whoever could get them, they were in large mass purchased by a single entity very quickly before anybody else had the opportunity to even purchase these homes. And I, as somebody who's grown up in a family where they've worked with developments and have developed property before, oftentimes as you're developing them, people will come in interest groups will come in and say, hey, I want to know what are you asking for to sell these lots for? What do you want to do for, would you sell the lots? Would you sell them with building units on them, etc.? And even though it's, we can sell them to whoever, oftentimes a group deal will be made for purchase of a large quantity of these buildings, and then they'll end up being rentals instead of being what they're intended to be, whereas people finding homes to live in and to have. And that's my question is with you guys only owning part of the properties, the ones that you're developing, are those going to be slated out for public purchase? Okay, and do you have any interest groups right now who have expressed interest in purchasing multiple units? Okay, the record, so they said nobody, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments before we close the public hearing? Okay. Do we have any motions from?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, discussion on the item.
Would it be a problem, could I just say one thing to the public before we start?
Yeah.
That'd be okay, or do we have to open it back up again?
No.
I just want to say thank you for being here. To me, I know a lot of you have said you'd have other things that you'd much rather do. Believe it or not, the four of us might feel the same way. You probably all know that we're volunteers. We don't get paid a penny for coming here and trying to do the best we can for the city that we love to. One of you said, "This is really hard, isn't it? Oh, you haven't had this before." No, we've had a few of these before. And it's okay. For me, I'm going to go home tonight saying, this is America. This is the way it should be. Is there a better thing that we could be doing tonight? Yeah, I could probably be home hugging my grandkids and telling them stories. And walking up and down my little streets that I live on. You know, there's a lot of things we can do. But I'm grateful. I'll go home saying I'm grateful to live here. And I'm grateful to live here in Springville because of you. And what you did tonight. I think this is powerful. And it's right for you to be here. And to be able to express, have an opportunity to express the way you feel that means something to you, that's powerful and meaningful. And for that, this little, not very intelligent planning commissioner just wants to say thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Kay. We have set in a number of opportunities that we value public input, and it makes a difference in our being able to have a holistic view of the decisions that we're making. And so, yes, even though it can be a little bit of an interesting experience for everybody involved, we do appreciate and value public input. So thank you for being here. Especially you, mister. That's hard at 13.
Good job, Ben. Connor. Connor. Is that right? Good job, Connor.
Mm-hmm. Any discussion on this item or a motion, or what do we want to do? I feel like you're in your own little island over there.
They told me to sit here, so I did. It's interesting, I went to a planning commission conference this past week, and one of the classes in that conference was entitled Community Input is Bad. And one of the reasons that I think that they were saying that, and one of the things that they were trying to teach us, I guess, with this particular class, is that a lot of times the public input that we get is very volatile, and people there with an axe to grind. My response to that was, well, that sounds a lot like the caucus meetings that we go to in our political arena. And he looked at me and he said, well, I hadn't thought of that, but you're probably right. I echo the sentiments of the other commissioner who mentioned that he was proud to have you here, and I agree with that. I disagree with the concept that community input is bad. But there is a concept that I think we all need to understand, and that is that, again, several of you got up here and said, I've never been to a city council meeting before, and and so on and so forth. Well, we are not the city council, okay? The decision will not be made here. Only thing that will be made here is a recommendation. Now, all of you, some of you even said, well, were any of you here that made the decision to develop this community? And the response is, well, maybe half of us were here when that decision was made. And the answer is, we didn't make the decision. The city council did. Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention, and that is that even though, you know, some of us were here when that was done, the concept of, you know, you're all saying we were left out of that meeting. Well, not all of you were. Some of, because there was about this many people there, as I recall, when we had that meeting that night. But that being said, I just wanted to say to you that one of the problems that we have is transparency. Obviously, that didn't happen to have all of you now suddenly saying, wait a minute, we weren't there. Well, I'm going to suggest something to you, again, that was suggested before, and that is that if you want to change something, you have to look at why the transparency or the public notice was not made. And it wasn't us, it wasn't the city. I mean, you can blame the city. They followed the law about public notice that is given by the state legislature. Now, it may not have been sufficient, but then whose fault is that? It is the state legislature. Now, I even asked in this meeting, do any of you have any suggestions as to how we can have better public notice? And I got a number of responses. And I understand that we need better public notice in these situations. But again, that's not our fault. I mean, we can make recommendations and everything to the city to do a better job of that, but they thought they were doing a better job at the time. Obviously, it didn't happen. But again, take the fervor that you've brought to this meeting and go do something about it with the state legislature, because they're the ones who mandate what public notice is.
Maybe just
that's all I have to say.
Maybe just do a quick follow-up with sorry, it's my previous life with Commissioner Fair. This item will be heard again with City Council. Do we know which date, Josh?
It's currently on the agenda for next Tuesday, the 20th, I believe.
So what I think part of what Commissioner Fair is saying is bring the same passion to City Council. I don't think he's trying to pass the buck, saying, and in my comments, we're not trying to say we're passing the buck to someone else. It's just, it's important for you to understand as a citizen how these different governmental organizations work and what our role is as a planning commission and what the City Council's role is in terms of making decisions. We will vote tonight on whether we approve or deny or continue, but that's just a recommendation to go to the City Council, but it's not the final decision, right? So you can do that next Tuesday, in addition to what he's saying, then talking together with, and then do what you can for, with legislature. Here's another one. For all of you to know, and I think we may have mentioned this before, there's a lot of good people out. There's a lot of good people out here. Someday, you might want to think about sitting up here. We would love that. Good people are needed all the time. And all you got to do is just submit your desire to want to help the city and everywhere you can and be that passion and do that kind of stuff and just let Mayor Packard know that's what you'd like to do. You've got an interest. It would be wonderful. It would be wonderful. I think that's another way to get additionally involved and let your neighborhoods know and to know what's going on. And I think all the Planning Commission meetings are publicized on the website. So we can always look at springville.org for anything that happens. And we can always look at the minutes of things that are happening, things that are upcoming, and so we can always kind of get a feel for that. So that might be helpful too. Can I just share something with the commission for just a second too, maybe to get us started? one of the slides that came up had to do with negative, neutral, and positive.
Right.
I'd like to just share my feelings about that and then tell you what I'm thinking about doing, what I would like to do. There were some neutral things that I feel were really more negative than neutral. I don't think the positive thing is, I think the positive thing is really more neutral. And all I could do as I was going through this, and I've got a whole bunch of notes and ideas and thoughts that we'd like to pass on to the city council, and I know that Councilman Elizabeth is going to probably taken some pretty good notes too, right? So I wrote down, all I could do is write negative things, adhering to previous expectations, public feedback. This recommendation is going against everything that I have voted for in the past. This isn't community character. Even though we never deal with safety issues here, ever rarely, there's something that needs to be addressed, I think, with the city. But I think for me, to me, it's just an easy vote for me, and I'm going to recommend that we do not approve, but this recommendation. So I don't know if any of you have some more comments before we take the actual vote, but those are my thoughts.
Can I just jump in and clarify one thing before you continue your discussion regarding the city council meeting next week? It is a public meeting, but it's not a public hearing, so discretion is taken generally at the mayor's, comments are taken at the mayor's discretion, but I have never seen him not invite someone up to comment that has filled out one of those forms. I got a couple from some via email tonight. That's great that you send them in for here. Anybody can speak in this meeting as a public hearing, but I would encourage you, if you do have a desire to speak to the council next week, that you either beforehand, you could just Google Springville City Council public comment form, or they have them available for the meetings if you want to fill them out. That really helps us manage that and give you the opportunity to address your elected officials. But there won't be just a general call as part of the item for public comment. So please submit your forms or communicate your intent to do that.
Thanks for that clarification. I think the only thing I would add to it is that there's other places in the city where I think it would fit better to have a 45-foot, like Main Street or whatnot. But this isn't where I would see the 45-foot fitting in well. So.
There's nothing else. I'll make a motion.
Go for it.
All right. I move to recommend denial of the Lafferty Community's requested amendment to the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan to increase the maximum height from 35 feet to 45 feet to permit 3.5 stories on certain townhomes and loft homes on interior lots not facing existing neighborhoods as shown in attachment 1.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So that will be our recommendations to the city council that of course will go forward for discussion at their meeting. There are no more items on our agenda unless there's anything from staff to bring up before we adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you again for being here.